You have to wait for the people to join. Alright, let's see who's joining. I told my friends to join, so they may be joining too. Oh, someone joined. Alright. 4, 6 people.
Hey there. Hello, everyone.
I think if you, one of the things you can make it so it's like people can also ask questions on the live. It should be one of them. Like they can ask questions.
I have this TikTok expert, my daughter, helping me out over here because it's my first time going live, and I don't want to make a fool of myself. Hello. Waiting for a few more people to come on, and I can start answering questions.
Okay. Let's see. 35 likes, 50 likes.
All right. I see people joining, so I guess people just ask the questions, right?
Or you can answer them.
I'm going to answer some questions anyway. So somebody had asked me, you know, as far as the moratorium went, did I think it went on too long? Absolutely, I think it went on too long, the moratorium. The other problem was that it was poorly planned because they should have let the landlords apply for the assistance rather than the tenants, because the tenants, you know, didn't really have much to gain by it as much as the landlords did to keep the tenants in there and pay the rent. I will tell you though, out of 240 tenants, I had 12 that were affected by the pandemic, and we worked with them. They applied for the assistance. We helped them apply for the assistance. They got the assistance, and it worked out beautiful. We had 3 that refused to apply for the assistance. And I'm in Rhode Island, by the way. So we had a few that refused, absolutely refused. And of course, you know, I've done the TikToks about those 3. One was the squatters, which they have court tomorrow. So I'm going to have to go back, I guess, live tomorrow night to give you an update on that. The other one was the one where I had the picture behind me. He has court tomorrow. Now, all of a sudden, today is when their lawyers contact my lawyer and try to work it out and want to try to settle it and resolve it after months of us trying to work it out with them, you know, my staff. The problem is, and the reason why it's difficult for me to want to work it out with them, and it's tough, is because the hours that was spent by my staff and trying to work with these 3 tenants that refuse to work with us, the hours, the phone calls, the stopping in at the properties, leaving messages. You know, it's very, very difficult, you know. So the other thing is, and a lot of the questions I have too is, do I get worried that people are going to mess up the apartment when they leave? Well, over the years, that has been an issue where, you know, some tenants will, you know, mess it up. To be honest with you, it's one of those things where it's part of the business. That's something that, you know, we accept it, and we go in there and we just repair it. We send a crew in there, get it repaired as quick as possible, remodeled, and get it back rented again. The goal here is to keep the apartment rented as much as possible, and that's the way that we can survive and pay the bills. What other question I have? Let's see. Yesterday. Oh, is it difficult to find a moving company? So, yeah, I would say right now it's going to be extremely difficult with so many evictions going on. To find a moving company is very difficult. Now, we're not allowed to move the tenants out ourselves. The constable, the law is you have to hire a third party, a neutral moving company to move the people out. They go in, they pack up the belongings right in front of the people and bring it out into a moving truck. And then the constable will, you know, ask the tenants to leave, and if not, he'll call the police, and the police will come keep the peace and walk the people out of the apartment. You know, that's a last resort. You know, again, I'm in the rental business, so I rather get my rent. That's what people don't understand. You know, the tenant will say to me, "You want me out? You want me out?" No, I want my money. I want my rent. I want to pay my bills. So that's an issue there. But yeah, I think getting the moving companies right now is going to be definitely a problem. Getting a moving company. So the other issue is that I'm looking at there. People are playing mean. So on TikTok, I did a TikTok last week where I said I have thick skin, but it is amazing how mean some people can be. Being a slumlord. So it's interesting because, you know, first of all, in every state there's minimum housing laws. So when somebody says you're a slumlord, well, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, call an inspector, let them come and inspect the property, and if I'm a slumlord, then they'll violate me or fine me, which that's never happened. So that's kind of a joke when people call us a slumlord, because there's so many laws in place right now to protect the tenants from that. You know, yeah, years ago maybe that was an issue, but now it's not an issue, and we don't worry about it because we know it's not true. All of our apartments are rented. We have a waiting list, so that tells me, hey, we have tenants that are pretty happy, except for the ones that aren't paying their rent. Those three. So we have a waiting list. So that's why, you know, the whole slumlord thing's kind of a joke when people say it. Hi, let's see, Mary, hi, nice to see you too. I actually am pretty happy I can actually see the questions on here. You know, it's interesting too because, you know, people will say to me, you know, why don't you fix up your property, fix up, you know, the house, make it nicer. So one of the issues is that we can only get into an apartment if a tenant allows us into the apartment. They have rights. The tenants have rights, whether they're paying their rent or not. They have rights. Again, going into the business, I had to accept that. One of my TikToks, there was a hallway. It was a disgusting mess when we went in there with the constable, and people said, "Oh, it's a terrible hallway," but that was actually the tenant's hallway. The door is outside. You have to go up the stairs to get into their apartment. Now, when I purchased that property, they were storing stuff all over the hallway, all up and down the stairs. That's dangerous. That was an emergency egress. So what we did is we had a fire inspection. The fire department came and told them, "You got to get everything out of the hallway." And they didn't like hearing it. But that is some of the things that we have to do. We have to keep the hallway clear to keep it safe. And of course, the tenants thought we were being difficult, but no, we're going by the book. In Rhode Island, you know, I can only speak for Rhode Island. I'm sure every other state has it. There's a handbook called the Rhode Island Tenant Landlord Handbook. And it's a really, really, I consider it the Bible. And it came out 20 years ago, and I've used it since. In that handbook, it gives the tenants their rights, the landlords their rights, the documents, anything that we need to send to a tenant is in there, a template. And we go by that book. So that way there is never any question as to whether we're doing something wrong or they're doing something wrong. It's black and white in the tenant landlord handbook. When we lease an apartment, we give them a copy of the handbook. What is my average rate of rent? Well, that's very interesting. Good question. So just like in other areas, we have affluent areas, we have low-income areas, and of course we have very nice areas. So I have some apartments in some very, very nice, expensive areas that are rent, you know, tough to rent. And I also have some apartments in low-income areas. And so I would say the average apartment in a low-income area would probably be about $800 a month. The higher end would be about $1,800 a month in the nicer areas. My apartments are mostly in 3-unit to 10-unit buildings. The biggest building I have is a 12-unit. I just did buy a 40-unit that we haven't closed on yet. But most of my buildings are all between 3 and 10 units. The larger complex type of places, of course, they get more rent because it's a complex. Mine are, like I said, you know, 3 to 10 units, which is kind of nice too, because that way people feel like they're living more in a smaller community rather than a complex. Though the one that I just bought that we're closing on next month is a 40-unit complex. Let's see what else is there. The next question. Let's see. Well, do I have apartments available? Right now, all apartments are full. We do have a waiting list. When I buy apartments, I try to buy a variety of apartments. We have 1 bedroom, we have studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and I get lucky because I have 2 great property managers that manage all my rentals and my office manager, and they manage all the rentals. So it's funny now because I 5 years ago when I was doing all the management myself, people could ask me, do you have an apartment? I would know where and who lives in the apartment. But now that we're up to 240, I don't really know the tenants' names except for the ones who are chronically late, because those will come across my desk. And I guess that's a good thing. But my two managers, Tim and Andrew, do a great job managing the properties, and they would be the ones that know if something's available. And that's why I always say call the office or email, and then we can find out which ones are available. Again, I'm not worried about damage to the apartments, because it is what it is. For the most part, people do move out because they don't want any more problems. And oh, by the way, before I forget, okay, regarding my tattoos, I don't have any, so I have none to show you. Sorry. So and I'm fully clothed, so that's the only difference between my live and some other lives that are on TikTok. So, hello, how you doing? Let's see who else we have. Your best friend is from Rhode Island and is loving your accent. Yeah, so my niece is visiting right now from Florida. She lives in Sarasota, and she's up here visiting. And, yesterday she was at my office making fun of my accent. I guess her friends make fun of my accent. So, yes, I do have a Rhode Island accent. So I accept that. Let's see, watching from Providence. Recently found your videos. They're very interesting. Well, thank you, Providence. My nightclub, Club Hell, was in Providence, that I owned for 17 years. I don't own any rental properties in Providence as of yet, but I did have my club in Providence. Hi from Cranston. Well, I am in Cranston. That's where I live. And let's see, somebody's in Texas now. I love it. She's in Texas now. So somebody's in Texas now, right?
Yeah, go now.
So, I have another question over here. Let's see. Somebody from Massachusetts watched my whole page. Well, I appreciate that. So it's funny because, when I get on TikTok, if you look at my very first couple of TikToks, I did try doing the dance and, and of course with my kids and, and I made a couple of funny things. But then I realized, what? I do enjoy telling the stories, from when I started my business, at a young age. And what got me to here now, I think that is my niche. I guess you could say it's real. It's down to earth. I want to be honest, and it's where got me. So right now, let's see. How did my tenant situation go? Well, again, tomorrow I am going to court for 2 tenants. The woman that was getting the Grubhub, I think I told you about that one, the one that lives with her wife and the brother. So their lawyer contacted us today, and they're making an offer of, getting us the rent relief. Now, all of a sudden, when they realize I called yesterday and the lawyer called us today, they realize that we're not fooling around right now. The constable and the moving company is going to go move them out unless they pay. So what they did was they applied for the rental assistance, a little late, but what I did was, in good faith, if they make me a good faith payment, then I have no problem. If they pay me weekly until the rent assistance comes, then I don't mind giving them that opportunity. Again, my goal is to have apartments rented by tenants who pay rent, not having empty apartments. The other thing is the rental assistance. I think that has been poorly handled. I know in Rhode Island it's been poorly handled. I assume it's like that all over the country where they say 90% of the funds have not even been dispersed. Well, here it is now, 14 months into the moratorium where it just ended, but it's been 14 months and poorly handled, as far as the rental assistance goes. Terrible. Because what happens is, people think the landlords are rich. Well, I'm not. When I buy a property, I have a mortgage. And I use the rent to pay the mortgage, and it's pretty much my retirement. That's what I always consider the properties, my retirement. So I don't take any money out of the properties. In fact, in 2008, when we had the banking crisis, that's when I almost lost everything because I was putting everything back into the properties, my rent. My business lost its customer base because my audiovisual business, which is my main income, they stopped having conferences in 2008, 2009, so I literally had zero income. So not only did I almost lose my rental properties, I almost lost my own house. My own house was in foreclosure, where I live right now. And my lawyer actually had to stop the foreclosure. I was able to renegotiate with my bank. They really did work with me. A couple of the banks for my properties worked with me. Only one bank didn't work with me, And I was going to save that for a TikTok story, but I'll tell you now. Bank of America, what happened was I actually was with Countrywide for one of my rental properties. It was a 4-unit house. And Countrywide Mortgage went out of business. Bank of America bought out Countrywide. Well, when I was working with Countrywide, they gave me a forbearance agreement where I'd pay less each month to try to, salvage the mortgage. Bank of America would not honor the deal. And that went on for 6 years. I would send my mortgage payment in, Bank of America would send it back. My lawyer would send it in, Bank of America would send it back. It was amazing. Every month I'd call them up, how much do I owe? Well, they would just add it on. At one point, my minimum payment was like $62,000, some ridiculous amount of money. Then what happened was I got very lucky. Well, of course, the government sued Bank of America, and Bank of America had to pay back $400 million in fines. I got lucky because a new loan servicer, Aquin Loan, took over servicing my mortgage. And they actually went back and sued Bank of America for me. Bank of America had to pay me back. They had to pay fines. They had to correct my credit because they destroyed my credit for 6 years, which was a problem because I couldn't buy any property. So they destroyed my credit until 2016, actually, is when my credit actually, only talking 5 years ago, when my credit got back to where, it should be 800. But it was 400 for 6 years thanks to Bank of America. So, I won't do business with them for that because it was a horrible situation. Anyway, so there's a question here. How can I record the live to show my aunt? It's interesting. I don't know how you can record the live. I just Googled it tonight because I wanted to learn how to record the live. So I know I can record it. I would say maybe if you have like another phone or an iPad, just record it. So, or maybe screen record if you have a screen record app or something. But anyway, but that's a good question because I wanted to record it too. My niece, I see my niece Hill Doggy is on right now. She's from Florida. She's the one who makes fun of my accent. She was born in Rhode Island, but she moved to Florida years ago, and of course she got the Floridian accent. So that's that's the issue with that. Let's see, screen record. Yeah, I guess that's what you can do, screen record. I appreciate everyone being on here. How many do we have on here?
25.
All right, so we have 25 people. And so let's see, any other questions I can answer? Nice hat, Uncle Jeff. Well, thank you very much, Hillary. I like my hat. This is my lucky hat, by the way. I wear this when I play blackjack. Of course, it's not always that lucky, but I call it my lucky hat. The other thing is, once I get a tenant to court, how does the judge handle the debt? So that's a good question. When we go to court, we ask for two things. You ask for possession. And you also ask for the back rent. So the judge will give me possession of the apartment. That means they're evicted, and also back rent. So if they owe, say, $2,500, I'll get a judgment for $2,500. At that point, I can take that judgment. I can give it to a bill collecting attorney and have that attorney chase the tenant and try to collect the money. I've never really done that in the past. I've been just so happy to get the tenant out. I want to move forward, not backwards. So I've never really done that. But right now, with these tenants that took advantage of the pandemic and didn't work with me, those tenants I already got an attorney who start collecting that money. But normally, if a tenant owes me a couple of months and we evicted them, we don't go after it. We're just happy to get it back again. So yeah, garnishing the wages is one way that the attorney will collect the money, from that tenant. He'll just go to court, garnish their wages, and they'll send me every time they get a little bit of money, they'll send me a piece. The attorneys generally take a third of what they collect, which is fine because at that point I expect nothing. The tenant's gone, we have our new tenant in there, and that's what happens. But yeah, I think eventually you do end up getting some of the rent because, the tenants, especially if they have jobs. If they don't have jobs, there's no wages to garnish. If they're on disability, that makes it very difficult. So that's, how that works. How did I get started renting apartments? All right, well, that's a kind of a long story, but I'll share it with you. I actually bought my first building in 1998. 1998, I bought a building. In fact, it has one of my ice cream shops in it. When I bought the building, it came with the ice cream shop. So that building's a 10-unit building. One of the units is the ice cream shop. So that's how I actually got into the business. I bought that in 1998. It was my first building I ever bought. and I started renting that one out, and also started running the ice cream business. Which, by the way, the first year that I owned the ice cream business, I lost money because I had no idea what I was doing. My father actually helped me manage the store. He had just retired from his job, and that year we lost money, but we learned a lot. We renovated the store. The next year we started making money, and it ended up being profitable, and that's when I realized, okay, we can expand the ice cream business. But that's when I started renting apartments, was then. That's in an affluent area. It's actually a waterfront property on a cove in Cranston, Patuxent Village. People from Cranston know it's in Patuxent Village. And so that was my first ice cream shop, and also my first property that I owned. Hill Doggy, your hair is beautiful. So I assume one of your friends is on saying how beautiful your hair is. Did you primarily want the ice cream shop and apartments were a bonus? Yeah, so that's absolutely what happened. So my father was retiring from his job, and my audiovisual business was doing fairly well, and I always wanted to own an ice cream shop. So the ice cream shop was for sale. And I went and met with the people that were selling the ice cream shop. Very nice couple. They actually started the business in 1982, actually. And so I went and met with them in 1998. So they had owned it for 17 years before I met with them. And they were elderly. So what happened was we were negotiating to buy the ice cream shop. And then one day they said to me, by the way, just so you know, we're also going to be selling the building. We decided to retire ourselves, and we're going to sell the building. It's too much for us to handle. So I then made them an offer on the building, and I bought the building with the ice cream shop. So yeah, primarily I was looking for the ice cream shop and ended up with the building. And that's kind of what gave me a taste of being a landlord is. But that being said, I also learned, I bought the building. The building was a historic building. It was built in 1770, so before the 1776. So it was built in 1770, and the foundation was rotted out. So right after I bought the building, I had to spend $150,000 on it, just putting a whole brand new steel and concrete foundation in. So that was a little bit of a shocker, and it was a very, very bitter pill to swallow. But now the building is safe. It's nice. I did a TikTok the other day showing my ice cream shop actually hangs over. Cantilevers over the cove. They don't even build buildings like this anymore. This sticks out over the river. I'll have to put some pictures on so people can see it. So that's how I got into the rent. That's how I got into the rental business. So anyway, let's see what else we have. My aunt started buying houses for us girls. A lot of people do that. They buy the houses for their kids. They buy the properties for their kids to have, a future retirement, whatever's income, and that's a good thing. A couple of the properties I bought, unfortunately, were just the other way around, where I bought a property in a very affluent area, East Greenwich, Rhode Island, and let's see. All right, let's see. How does this work now? Emily, how does this work? Somebody wants to go live together? I'll have to do that after. So anyway, I had bought this property in East Greenwich. What this property was it was inherited by some kids in their 50s. So their kids in their 50s inherited, and they ran the property into the ground. It was in real rough shape when I bought it. But because it was run into the ground, I was able to get it at a good price. Went through, renovated it, and I have all long-term tenants, and the tenants there have been over there 5, 6, 7 years. They love it in that area. So I've done some real nice work there. That's why when people call me a slumlord, I think of that property. That property is in an affluent area. Just to give you an example, on that property, because they get appraised, they get assessed every year. When I bought that property, it was assessed at like $300,000 is what the town had it assessed at. Now it's assessed over $1 million. Can I sell it for that? Probably not, but the town, says it's a high to get the taxes. You know how they are. They want their tax money. But I have a mortgage on it anyway, so, like I said, the money I bring in goes right back to paying the mortgage. I don't take any money out of my properties. I live off of now my audiovisual business is back, so I live off of that. During the pandemic, I had to, live off of some of my rental income to survive because the audiovisual business was, pretty much dormant because there were no conferences. So that's the story with that. Let's see. Hey, everyone. Let's see. I want to move to Rhode Island. Well, it's interesting because, there's a lot of beautiful places all over the country. I like Rhode Island, where it's centrally located between New York and Boston. It's on the water on the coast. I like Rhode Island. I like the seasons. I like to ski, so we're close to New Hampshire. So I like where I'm at. A lot of people think it's too cold in the winter. My parents, they're snowbirds. They live in Florida in the winter, and they come up here in the summer. And so of course, my niece lives in Florida now because her family moved there, probably about 14, 15 years ago, maybe longer, 20 years ago. So that's what's interesting, that, Rhode Island has some nice areas. It does have some real nice areas. Let's see. Yeah, Siesta Key. Yep, Siesta Key in Florida. That's where my niece is. She's on the message thing. So what happened with the evictions? Did they agree or not? Well, that's a good question. So this afternoon, one of the lawyers agreed, yet we haven't seen anything yet, and the other one hasn't agreed. But tomorrow morning is the court. So what I'm going to do is tomorrow we have court at 10 o'clock. So I'll come back on tomorrow night and let everybody know how we made out with that. Either we're going to have an agreement or we're not, and that's it. Because I've wasted a lot of time with these three tenants, wasted a lot of time. And it's so depressing because we do have tenants that were affected by the pandemic. I have a restaurant, last year when the restaurants were shut down, I worked with that restaurant. They were a tenant of mine. Well, they're still a tenant of mine. They became a tenant in 2004, and they're still a tenant. And I worked with them. We cut their rent in half when they got shut down. Last year, we actually gave them a little bit of a break because they've been great tenants. And of course, in that building, so think about this, in that building, I had a restaurant, I have a nail salon, I have a barber shop, and I have a beauty salon. So right there, I had 4 businesses in one building get shut down last year, in April when the governor shut down the state. So those tenants, what are they supposed to do? They couldn't pay their rent. So again, I worked with them. Great tenants. And, I worked with them and they worked with me. And same thing with my residential tenants. For the most part, they've all been great. They communicated with our office and we worked with them. It's just a select few who had income. See, that's what aggravates me. They had income. They just completely took advantage of the pandemic when they had income. And of course, I totally lost respect for them. And I think you folks can tell that I have no respect for those bums that just chose to take advantage of the pandemic. And that's why I got so frustrated. So I was going to ask about the tenants at the beginning. Yeah, so that's tomorrow is going to be the court date for those 2 tenants. Property manager complex 220 rental properties. That's a lot. That being said too, I learned by trial and error as far as managing properties. I managed my own properties. We are self-managers, so we don't use an outside management company. I've always managed my properties myself. I got extremely lucky. My nephew, who was in the restaurant business, decided to get out of the restaurant business. He was looking for a change in career, and I hired him. It's actually funny. I was looking for a maintenance person, so I hired him to do maintenance. I don't know if he's on here or not, but he'll laugh because he knows the story. I hired him when he got out of the restaurant business. Come on, Andrew, you can do maintenance. So the first day he showed up to the job, he never did any maintenance. He was so good at dealing with the tenants, being organized, money, financial. He ended up becoming my right-hand man, and now he manages all the rental properties. And we're only talking 2 years later. He's fantastic. So I got very lucky because he's 36, so being, 20 years younger than I am, I know that I have somebody that can run the business for the next, 20 years or so. So I got very lucky with him coming aboard as a property manager. At the same time as we grew, now we have licensed electrician that works for us. We have a licensed plumber that works for us, master plumber, master electrician, full-time for us on our staff, HVAC, full-time HVAC person, full-time carpenters, full-time painters. So we have a full-time staff to help manage the properties, which, again, being self-managed, it really makes a big difference because now when a tenant calls and has an emergency, we can address it. Of course, it all depends on what somebody considers an emergency, but we do try to address it as soon as possible. They didn't make the deal to pay the $200, but tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock is court. So if they don't, then that's it. They're all those people, the $200. If they don't make the deal by tomorrow morning 10, they're just getting moved out because they've already gone to court. We already have the judgment. I got that about 6 weeks ago, before the moratorium was extended. So we already have their judgment. So they can get out, unless they come up with the money tomorrow morning. My lawyer's talking to their lawyer. So hello from West Warwick. So I do own a lot of property in West Warwick. I own probably about 80 or 90 units in West Warwick. What I did was, we do flip houses. So that's the other thing my nephew Andrew does with me. We do a lot of flip houses, buy houses at the auction and rehab them and sell them. Well, during the pandemic, there has not been any auctions. So what we decided to do is, since there's not any auctions, I've been buying a lot more rental properties. So that's what we did. Last year we've added to so that's why in West Warwick we have a lot. Anyway, the deal that I offered the tenants, because somebody's asking me, the deal that I offered the tenants is that they pay me a weekly good faith payment, which they were supposed to do anyway. If anybody ever read the moratorium, it said tenants must make a good faith payment. Well, that was a joke because none of them did. None of these three did. My other ones did, and that's what was aggravating. The ones who didn't have the money were making. Now, when I say good faith payment, I didn't care if they came in with $25. It shows me they're making an effort. So they all worked with me. It's just these three. So that did not work with me. They did not pay the dime. So the offer I made to them was they have to make good faith payments right now every week until the rent relief money comes through that they applied for. They have to prove to me they applied for it and make good faith payments, and I will wait for the rent relief money. And then I'll take the money. And then obviously at that point, the rent relief brings them up to date, and then it's going to be up to them to start paying their rent again, or they'll get evicted. And at that point, the pandemic will be gone, the moratorium will be gone, and they won't have anything to fall back on, The best or the worst excuse not to pay rent, well, of course, during normal times, I'll say a normal excuse would be that, somebody's bank account got hacked. That's always a good excuse. That seems to be a regular one. But I mean, the legitimate ones, if somebody lost their job, if they got fired and they can't collect unemployment. So during normal times, those are usually the excuse that somebody can't pay rent. And the one I love is if it's a couple in the apartments, you have two incomes, and somebody will say, well, I lost my job, I can't pay my rent. Well, what about your wife, your husband? They have income, you can pay something. So sometimes we have to have these logical conversations with illogical people, because they're thinking, well, I live off of whatever it is, $1,000 a week, and my husband or wife lost their job. We still have to live off our $1,000, and you know what? Guess what? The rent's going to come second. And I tell them, no, it doesn't work that way. So it's interesting how people prioritize their life, and whatever it may be, buying their carton of cigarettes might be more important than the roof over their head. So that's another thing that we always have to have conversations with the tenants and ask them, okay, what is the problem? What happened? But right now, obviously, when people are collecting unemployment with the extra $300 a week and the stimulus money coming in, there was no excuse. There was no excuse not to make a good faith payment. That's just an embarrassment. When somebody looks at me and says that to me with a straight face, I don't have the money, and they're collecting unemployment and the bonus money. Now, the bonus money we know is running out this week. Actually, and some people's unemployment's running out this week. So this is going to be an interesting time, believe it or not, coming up. These people are going to go get jobs, which we know everywhere, all over the country, there are a ton of job openings. I have 4 job openings myself, painters, carpenters, and an HVAC person. But I mean, there are so many job openings right now all over the country, and people still, when the unemployment runs out, are they going to take the job and go work? That's going to be a tough one, because let's think about it. All right, I'm making $600 or $700 a week right now, cash, on unemployment and the bonus. Now I have to go get a job. Maybe it will pay $25 an hour, right? Which is $1,000 a week with taxes taken out, $600 or $700 a week, right? So now, psychologically, why am I going to work for that $700 when I was getting it for free for a year? So it's going to be moving forward is going to be some odd times, I think. So rent relief is our tax, your money, my tax money, and the government, gave all the states money, and they called it rent relief. That was in that last February, the hundreds of $1 million, $1 trillion that Congress put aside. And Rhode Island hasn't even given any out. They've given about 10% of the money. They're still holding 9%. We don't know why. It's a very, very slow rollout process, but that's what rent relief is. And even for the tenants that are doing the right thing, it's frustrating for them. They want to know that they have a roof over their head and that their rent is paid. The ones that really legitimately, the waitresses, the bartenders, the service workers, like I told you, the hairdressers, salon people, those people fell way behind. They want to know they're going to have a roof over their head. And that's why we work with them. I have, Jasmine and Heather in my office every day are talking to the tenants, working with them, assuring them, the ones that communicate with us, that they're going to be okay. The ones that don't communicate with us, they're not going to be okay. And I'm not worried, and I don't care. So it does blow my mind too that people don't understand their priorities. I will tell you a story, I guess. So in 2008, I said that, my audiovisual business took a huge hit. And so no income, zero income, because that's when the banking crisis happened. A lot of our clients were banks, insurance companies that had these large conferences all over the country. And that's what my audiovisual business does. We travel around the country setting up the big screens, projectors in conference centers, convention halls. So that's what we've done. I've done that since I pretty much started that business when I got out of high school. I was a DJ and took my DJ money and bought this equipment, and it evolved into this audiovisual business. So in 2008, when this banking crisis happened, talk about priorities. So I had my wife, and at that time I had my son. My daughter wasn't born yet, and so I obviously had to take care of my family. And we got creative. So one of the guys that worked for me, Mike, ran the audiovisual business with me. He used to own a car lot, and I needed to buy a Jeep and a plow to plow a couple of my properties. So we were on Craigslist buying Jeeps, looking for a Jeep and a plow, and I couldn't find a Jeep with a plow on it, but we bought a Jeep and we bought a plow. We put the plow on the Jeep. So we used it for the season, and I went to sell it. When I sold it, I actually sold it for $2,000 more than what I paid for it. It was used. So I realized there was money to be made with these Jeeps and plows. So Mike and I, and at the time Donnie, my maintenance person who still works for me, Donnie was great because he was mechanically inclined, can work on cars. We actually started going around all over New England. We went over, and in New York, Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. And we were buying up old Jeep Wranglers and plows. And we were putting the plows in Jeep Wranglers and selling them. We did that for 2 years. We did it in 2009, 2010. And that got us through, believe it or not. We were selling so many of them that, made some money. We all were able to survive and make some money. So priorities was my family, keeping those guys working, and it worked. It really, really worked. It was kind of exciting that we did that. Who knew? I was never in the car business, but we were creative. We did something creative to survive. So that's what happened there. The other thing is, the DJ story. My nieces make fun of me. So when I graduated from high school, I was a DJ. That's how I went to college. I paid for myself being a disc jockey. I didn't really work in nightclubs. I did all weddings and anniversaries, so I did, the old people dances, and but that's where the money was. I worked every weekend, every single weekend, 3-4 times a weekend. I would work for years. I literally, when I turned 40, I completely retired from DJing because of my business was going strong, and I didn't really need it anymore, and I was tired of working at night and the weekends, holidays. But it was it was something in my life that I loved. And the only thing I still DJ today is the Rhode Island Special Olympics events. I started DJing. I have a personal love in my heart for the Special Olympics in Rhode Island. They were my very, very first audiovisual client, and I still work with them today. We're talking 37 years later. I'm still working with them. I'm still on the state games committee. And so I still disc jockey any events that they have. I will disc jockey. You know what I'm saying? And they don't say, hey, look at there's the old man DJing. So even when I owned the nightclub, I only DJ'd there once in 17 years, and that was the Christmas party for the employees. But no, I was not a club DJ. For the most part, I did all weddings and anniversaries. Though in 1990, for about 6 months, I did help out a friend. So there's an adult dance club in Providence called the Foxy Lady. and they wanted to try out having a DJ there. They didn't have a DJ. I had never been in the place before. They actually used to put tapes in a cassette player behind the bar. Well, anyway, the owner wanted to try out having a DJ to see how it would work, and I did work there for 6 months. It was a shock to me. I had never been in a place like that. It was very interesting. I did it for about 6 months, and it was fun. But I was the very first DJ that they had. So that was kind of cool. Anyway, so let's see. Your brother flips houses in Rhode Island, stopped being a landlord because of the tenants. You know, it's amazing how many people I meet that say that. They stopped being a landlord because of the tenants. What I will tell you is I have a hard time dealing with the tenants myself right now. My nephew, Andrew, has the patience of a saint. Tim, his partner, have the patience of a saint. I do not have the patience that I used to have, but because I deal with them so seldom now, I find that I'm a little nicer to them than I was, because I did get burnt out. It is a burnout type of job. It's difficult dealing with the tenants sometimes, the stupidity and things that happen. It does become a very frustrating thing. But Andrew, I'll be in my office. I'll hear him in his office talking to a tenant. I'm like, oh, thank God it's him, because I would lose it. Well, for instance, I'll give you an example. Here's a story that you might appreciate. Last winter, so we have a tenant that lives in one of our apartments. She doesn't have a car. She doesn't drive. She works from home. So the governor shut down the state. Nobody is to go out in the state, okay, except for emergency vehicles. So what we did was we had our plow vehicles out plowing the properties. So I'm in my office and I hear, actually Heather was getting a hard time by one of the tenants. When are you coming to plow me? This is very bad. This is dangerous. I need to be plowed out. I need to get... So Heather's another one, very nice to the tenants. Tenants, I guess a customer. The customer's always right. No, it doesn't work that way in my book. So I went over, I grabbed the phone, and I said to her, I said, look, you're not going anywhere. The governor shut the state down. You have no emergencies, so stop calling here. You'll get plowed out when it's time to get plowed out. And I hung up the phone on her. So then she spent the whole day calling back and apologizing. But what happens is it's ignorance, okay? Because it was all important about her getting plowed out. And by the way, she didn't have a car. She works from home. So we get there when we get there, but the state was shut down that day. So there was no reason for her to call. So that's why I lose my patience with some of the tenants. So I know a lot of people ask me, okay, when you want to get rid of a tenant, can you shut their electricity off? Can you shut their gas off? Can you shut their water off? Well, no, you can't do that. Believe me, it's a thorn in your side. You wish you could do that, but you can't. Now, in my case, I'm lucky because when I buy a property, I always divide up the utilities. I always make the tenants pay their own electricity, their own heat, their own water. So at least if they're not paying the rent, I know that I'm not paying for their heat, I'm not paying for their water, I'm not their hot water, and the electricity. So that's the only saving grace that, yeah, they're still not paying the rent. And if they don't pay their gas or the electric, well, it gets shut off. But that's their problem, not mine. So that's one of the things I do. I completely divide up the utilities all the time. I don't want to pay for a tenant's electricity. It's bad enough I have to shut my kids' lights off. I don't want to have to worry about tenants, you know? So, all right. So how do I do this now? Let's see. Jack, I don't know how to do this. So Jack is on here. Jack actually is the one who taught me how to do TikTok. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anyway, here's somebody. I'm not a bad tenant. I don't understand why many are, but I have helped friend move and they destroy places. So, you know what? It's interesting when you talk about bad tenants and good tenants. So, we have a lot of good tenants. I mean, I have a tenant that's been in the building. So he's 58 years old. He moved in the building when he was 19. He's lived there through 3 landlords. I've owned the building since 2004. He's a great tenant. So I have a lot of long-term tenants, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You know, one of these TikToks, these stories are about the tenants that are a problem tenant, obviously. But we have such good tenants, you know, from commercial tenants to residential. I buy mostly residential. I like residential apartments. So that's the story there. I have a little New York City accent. So that's interesting because I didn't know that New York City had an accent. It's interesting. We're only an hour from Boston, and obviously they have a Boston accent. Everyone who makes fun of Boston all the time. Let's see. One time, one of the tenants has electricity shut off, and the pipes cost him a lot to repair. Yeah, the pipes froze. So that happened to me. So, again, here's a story. Last winter, the tenant didn't have their electricity shut off. They went on vacation for a month, and they thought it was a good idea to turn their heat off. Well, yeah, the pipes froze in the building. So that's one of those problems that you get, obviously, but that was their problem. Now, that being said, that's one of the reasons why we make sure people get renter's insurance. That's something that's in the lease now. We require all tenants to get renter's insurance. It's cheap. It's $150 a year, give or take. It's very inexpensive to have. It's a great insurance. Everybody should have renter's insurance. For $150 a year, if you're a tenant, when you own a house, you have homeowner's insurance. Why not have renter's insurance? It protects you, the tenant. We have tenants arguing with us right now because their lease is up, and we just made it mandatory 6 months ago. So as we're renewing the leases, they're arguing with us. But you know what? It's for their benefit. That's what's crazy. It's for their benefit. Do I trust property managers if you move out of state? So in my case, I'm lucky. My property managers, my nephew Andrew is fantastic, and Tim, they both were because they were in the restaurant business together. And when they got out of the restaurant business, I brought them aboard. Fantastic, best decision I ever made. So I trust them managing the property. That being said, all my properties are within a 20-mile radius of where my office is. So all my properties are local, except for one. I did buy a property in southern Rhode Island, in Narragansett, a nice rental property. And in that case, I'm going to get a local management company to manage that particular property because it's a 45-minute ride. It just doesn't make sense. If there's an emergency or a problem, they'd be a lot closer. But if I ever bought property out of state, that's the same thing I would do. But for my properties, we manage those. So Rhode Island has mainly houses split up into apartments. No, Rhode Island's like any other state. You have Providence would have some tenement houses. You have affluent areas where it's all single family houses where I live. But of course there's different. I'm in Cranston. There's parts of Cranston that have tenement houses. So it's like any other area in the country. You have tenement houses for rentals, and you also have single family houses, duplexes. So it's a wide variety of properties around here. Wide variety of properties. Where can the tenants go after the eviction? Well, to be honest with you, without sounding cold, I don't care. By the time I evict them, they've burned such a bridge with me because I always give them enough chances. That being said, I refer back to the Rhode Island Tenant Landlord Handbook. So when people sign a lease with us, in the lease, it has the handbook. And I am by the book. So when people, the rent is due on the 1st, it's late after the 3rd. So they have a 3-day grace period. After the 3rd, starting the 4th, they do have a late fee, either 50 or 75, depending on the unit. And then and they have to pay it. And I'm by the book. On the 16th of the month, they get what is called a 5-day demand notice. If they have not paid their rent by the 16th, they'll get a 5-day demand demanding them to pay or they will be evicted. So we post that notice on their door. We also mail it to them. On the 21st of the month is when it goes to my attorney. My attorney files the eviction paperwork. Now, at any time, the tenant can cure that. They can pay the late fee. They can pay the 5-day fee. Or if we even have a court date set, if they pay us by the time we go to court and cover the legal fee, they can stay. So there's so many opportunities to do the right thing. That's why by the time we get them actually evicted, I don't care where they go. Okay, that's their problem at that point. So that's the story there. In Rhode Island, do we need to go through the hearing for the execution? Yes, you do. Even if it's from last February, you do have to go through the hearing for the execution. You have to make sure you send the 5-day demand notice after the 16th, and then you have to have your lawyer or yourself. So here's another thing in Rhode Island: if you own a piece of property yourself in your own name, so if I had a piece of property in my name, I can go to court to evict the tenant. Because my properties were all in a business name, by law, my attorney has to represent me in court. So tomorrow my attorney will go with me to court, or with Tim or Andrew, whoever goes tomorrow morning. And so that's the other thing too. If your property is owned by a business, then your lawyer has to represent you in court. In Michigan, the legal notice goes out on the 4th. Interesting, much faster. That's interesting. Yeah, we send a late notice out on the 4th, and they get assessed a fee on the 4th, a fine. But in Rhode Island, you have to wait till the 16th, not the 15th. It has to be the 16th to send out the 5-day demand. And the 5-day demand, it's a template that's in the handbook. You have to fill it out correctly. If you don't, it will get thrown out in court, and you have to start all over again. And again, I learned early on by my mistakes. So we do conduct the business by the book. We're we really do try to follow the book, and that's why even we have to educate tenants. A lot of tenants just don't know. They're not being ignorant. They don't know. So when we take over a property and a landlord didn't educate the tenants or didn't teach the tenants or didn't manage it correctly, we have to re-educate the tenants as to what is right and what is wrong. And as far as what they can get away with, actually one of my employees is calling me, but I'm ignoring him. So that's what so what happens is that we have to educate the tenants about the late notices and the 5-day, and also giving notice. In Rhode Island, it's always said you have to give 30 days notice. Well, that's not necessarily true. That's what you say, but really what it is it's a full month's notice. So if you're going to move out in, like, for instance, we'll talk September. So if somebody calls me up today and says, I'm moving out tomorrow, the 1st, that's not proper notice. They can tell me they're moving out October 1st. That's a full 30 days. It's a full month. What happens is they, for some reason, think if they tell me on the 15th, they can move out on the 15th of the next month. That is not the law. The law is a full month. So if they tell me on September 15th they're moving out, really that would be for November 1st, because October would be the full month. And that's where tenants don't understand, and we spend a lot of time educating them on the full 30 days notice. And the reason that the 30-day notice is fair is because it gives us enough time to try to re-rent the apartment. And so they have to be fair. They can't call us up today and say, I'm moving out tomorrow. If they don't give 30 days notice, they are responsible for the next month's rent. And then, so that's the other thing too. So again, we go about greetings from Cumberland. Hey, Cumberland, how you doing? Would I ever sell a single-family home to a tenant? So yeah, so what happens is, and that's a good question, because we have a lot of, again, with 240 apartments, you have a lot of tenants. Their goal someday is to own a house. So even though they sign a lease with us, that's the one time that we allow them out of the lease is if they buy a home. Then obviously in support of that, we allow them out of the lease with proper notice. If they say, hey, Jeff, we just bought a house, we're going to be closing on it in 45 days, 60 days. Thanks for the notice. And now we let them out of their lease. We have had, tenants, renting houses from us, and they did buy the house from us. They ended up getting a mortgage and purchased the house from us. I've actually had situations with some of the houses that we bought at auction. So I'll talk about that for a minute. So we buy a lot of houses at the auction, foreclosures. We don't know the situation, why it got foreclosed on. Everybody has a story. It's not always because, hey, they were deadbeats, they didn't pay the mortgage. Somebody could have passed away, somebody could have died, somebody just could have lost their job and couldn't get another job, a divorce. There's a lot of reasons. So we are very passionate and we want to be fair with those people. Because when we go there, and I'll tell you, not all the auction guys are like that. I've been to auctions where they'll go right up to the door, hey, I just bought your house, get the hell out. Absolutely not. Andrew's excellent with it. I'm excellent with it. We talk to the people. Sometimes they avoid us because it's a very uncomfortable situation for them. So they'll avoid us. So we leave a letter with them saying to let you know we're not kicking you out. We just want to meet with you to discuss the transition. We have apartments for rent. We have houses for rent. Let's talk about, what you want to do. And you know what? It's worked out wonderful. I have tenants right now that the house got foreclosed on. In fact, it goes back to the banking crisis where they had a problem and they could never get out of the hole. The house got foreclosed on. I bought it at the auction, met with them, really nice couple. They rented a house from me, and they're still in that house today. They paid their rent every single month on time, and they're great, great tenants. And that's just one story. We have probably 5 or 6 like that, where we gave them an opportunity. And the reason why that's nice is they don't destroy the house. Even if they decide not to stay, they see that we offered them to stay or work out a transition, so they don't destroy the house. So that works out very, very well. We do get military renters. We do get military renters, and they're just as good as every other renter that we have. So yeah, we do get military renters. Let's see, what kind of lawyer do you go after a landlord? To go after a landlord? Well, that's interesting. So any lawyer that does landlord law, usually a business lawyer, a property, a real estate lawyer would end up, if you have to go after a landlord, a real estate lawyer would be somebody that I would consider if you have to go chase a landlord for whatever reason, let's see what else is there. So I bought a foreclosed house and let them stay. Oh yeah, so even right now, I have a house that I bought 2 years ago at a foreclosure, and this was a situation where the husband passed away, and the wife and the daughter were in the house. They're still in the house today. They pay us rent, and they're in the house today. So yeah, we have no problem letting the tenants stay. That one there's a duplex, so we rent out the other side as well. We have another one that we just sold back to the person that lived in the house. It was the same thing. What happened was the husband passed away, and she was in the house herself, couldn't afford the house, and we worked with her, and what happened was it worked out great. She had a relative who helped her out buy the house. She bought her house back, and we were fine with that. Again, we're not, we do a lot of houses. In 2019, I think we sold something like 35 houses. We bought and sold 35. 2020, I think we did 33. This year we're up to maybe 16. What happened, these are all houses that I bought before the pandemic, because there hasn't been that many auctions during the pandemic. So these are all houses that we bought before the pandemic, and we were working on them, fixing them up and selling them. But yeah, we have people that have stayed in the houses, been great tenants. And the thing is, and that's a good point too, when people say, do you do a background check? Do you do credit checks? What type of checks do you do? Well, you know what? I know from personal experience, my credit was screwed up for 6 years. What we do is we do an employment check, we do a landlord check, background check, and in Rhode Island, lucky for us in Rhode Island, lucky for the landlords, the court system in Rhode Island posts all evictions. So what happens is when people apply for an apartment with us, we can look on the court record and see if there's been evictions in the past. In fact, that's another question somebody asked. Do we charge more for somebody who's been evicted before? No, we don't. The rent is the rent. In fact, what we do is if they had an eviction like over 5 years ago, we don't even look at that. If it was recent, we ask for an explanation. We try to do the research on it. It could be for any reason. It could have been a roommate situation, a divorce situation. So we try to be fair, but we don't do credit checks. There's no reason to, because like I said, I had bad credit. So that's a practice that we never did, but we do check employment and rental history. That's something that's very, very important to do. What we had found, again, we learn from our mistakes. So what we do is when they call to see an apartment, we ask them for their name, their date of birth. Well, people change the spelling of their name. So now what we have to do is we have to get a copy of their license so they can't play that game. The other problem that we have is, you'll have an apartment that they'll say, okay, it's just for me, and they'll give us their name. They'll move in. Next thing you know, the boyfriend with the record a mile long moved in. So that's a problem, but it's in our lease now. When that happens, they're immediately in violation of the lease, and we tell them to get the hell out. And that happens. It's unfortunate too, because it always seems that the poor innocent girl rents the apartment. She has no record. She's nice, and she's dating a dirtbag. So that happens. Unfortunately, what are you going to do? New to your page, do you do this alone or have a business partner? So I do it alone. The rental properties I own myself. The audiovisual business I own myself. The ice cream shops I own myself. Butler Waste I own myself. The only business I ever had partners in was my nightclub. But yeah, I do this myself. But it's not myself because I have a team now. Before I could handle it myself up until when I had like 60 tenants. But now I have... we have a rental team. We have a whole team. Like I said, we have 2 property managers, 2 office people, and of course all our maintenance people. So it's really a team effort now. Right now, what I do is, and I'm serious. I joke about it, but they're thrilled that I've gotten interested in TikTok because now I really don't micromanage them. I let them do their job, and they're doing a great job, which is kind of cool for me. And it's allowing me to go out. Like this weekend, I purchased another piece of property, so it gives me time to go look for other properties or or do other things that I have interest in. So it's been kind of cool that way. They're doing a great job, and I have to catch myself from micromanaging every once in a while. I'll be in the office. I'll stop in the office just for a moment because I'm not in the office a lot, and I'll overhear a conversation. So I go and I interject myself in the conversation, which I shouldn't do. Yesterday I was in the office. If you saw the TikTok when two of the guys were arguing, so I snuck out of my office, videotaped them for a minute, made a funny TikTok. But they worked it out and they're fine now, so that's cool, you know. But yeah, no, I try not to micromanage because that's something that I always did. Well, you know, it's like anything else. It's your baby. So, I mean, the business was my baby. The audiovisual business. So, of course, when the pandemic hit, that business pretty much got shut right down, which was really unfortunate because that was really my main income. That's how I survived. That got shut right down for the pandemic. It just came back a month ago, 6 weeks ago. We just did two conferences. We did one in Michigan and we did one in Phoenix, Arizona. And the guy's leaving in a couple weeks to go do another one, Oklahoma. They're going to Oklahoma. I mean, these are places we never did conferences before, and now all of a sudden we're doing conferences in Oklahoma. Texas was always one of our biggest clients, a lot of clients in Texas and in Florida. I'm just thrilled that business is back. And what happened there was our sales manager, Mark, took over that business, and he happens to be 36. So Mark is 36. He runs the audiovisual business for me. So that's a wonderful thing. He's very good. He's excellent. I couldn't ask for a better manager. Really, really good guy. And so I got lucky because I have some really good managers managing my business. And my other nephew, Brian, manages Butler Waste, which is the trash business, which, listen, people say I whine and complain. I could spend hours whining and complaining about that business. That is a tough business. And I give Brian a lot of credit because, I mean, all you're doing is getting screamed at all day long by customers whose trash didn't get picked up, trash was spilled, you name it. So that's a tough business. That could be a whole series of TikToks in itself, is that. So let's see, what else is there? So that's that. I guess I'm trying to think what else there was. Tomorrow I have court, and so I will be I'll be letting you know tomorrow night on that one. I remodeled the house, so I noticed everything left. Can I see your fan? Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so that's my fan. My wife gave it to me for Christmas 1 year. It was my Christmas present. So that's my fan. So right there. Yep. So that's it right there. So anyway, but yeah, so it's a cool fan. It's a cool fan. So, well, it's cool when it's blowing cold air. So I have an air conditioner too. But that's cool that you noticed the fan. Yeah, I love my fan. So, yeah, it is. It's very different. I had never seen anything like that. You know, it's kind of cool. In fact, it's supposed to spin. Oh, I don't have it on. It only spins when it's on full. I think I have it on medium right now. So, but that's my fan. And this is my home office. So let's see. Oh, so Jessie Yankee's on. So Jessie's my other niece. She's on with me right now. She's a real estate agent. So that's cool. Yeah, the fan is different. So let's see. Did your tenants enter into the good faith agreement? Well, no, they have not yet. They have till 10 o'clock tomorrow morning because both of their lawyers did contact my attorney today. And my attorney, being a good guy, he's the voice of reasoning. He's my conscience. My attorney, Steve, is, he helped me where I am today. Because what happens is, like I said, sometimes I lose my patience, or I used to lose my patience with the tenants. He would be the voice of reason. Hey, Jeff, calm down. Let's look at it logically. He would tell me if I'm doing something wrong. And he'll say, Jeff, don't do that. So he really is a voice of reason. He is my conscience. He's a good guy. And everything he does is in my best interest, which is really, really good. I mean, I can't say enough about him. He's been my lawyer since 1997, and he's been great. He's been great. So, but anyway, so he asked me to give him until tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. So we'll see which I have court date tomorrow at 10 anyway. So, Yeah, I mean, obviously, if somebody wants, I see what somebody wants to contact me, not on TikTok. I mean, you can, if you want to send me an email, I have no problem sending an email. You can send me an email. I'll get the email because it's Elmwood Realty. So that's our company, Elmwood Realty at gmail.com. ELMWOOD Realty, REALTY, at gmail.com. And send me an email, and I definitely will get back to you, I had actually somebody call the office the other day who saw me on TikTok, who I guess is local, looking for a job. So I plan on talking to him, We are not TikTok friends. How come? How come? I'll be a TikTok friend. I love being friends. Is it on your page? No, I guess I can put it on my page. This is all new to me. I didn't even know you had a page, a profile. I mean, I have my dogs, I think, is my profile picture. I don't know. So I could do that. I'll have to, when we're done, I'll try to add my email to my profile so that way people will see it, So that's the story with that. I don't know if anybody saw my story about when I got sued a few years ago. That was a very, very difficult time. That's part, so business, Shark Tank, I like Shark Tank. So Shark Tank, they always talk about, entrepreneurs have to work, they work 80 hours, they don't work 40. Well, that's true. I used to work 80, so I don't work 40. Now I'm pretty much working, I would say 40, but I was working 80, so I don't work 40. But also what happens is, you also have these legal issues, lawsuits. People can sue you for any reason. And that was a very difficult time. Because so the question came up earlier, and that's why, can you avoid the lawsuit? Not really, because if somebody wants to sue you and they get a lawyer to do it, they can sue you. The question is, can they win? Will they win? No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. But anybody can sue you if you want. Was I ever a renter? So no, what happened was I actually lived at home with my parents till I was 30, believe it or not. I bought my first house when I was 30, near them, and I lived in that house till I was 40. Actually, I lived in the house till I was 40 because I bought this house when I was 40. Now, if I was to do it all over again, I wouldn't have bought that first house. It was a single-family house on a lake. It was a nice house, but I was by myself, and I had a very expensive mortgage, so I actually had to have roommates help me pay for it. So that was a mistake. I probably, going backwards now, I should have purchased a 2-family duplex or a 3-family as my first house and lived in one of the apartments. So I I would say I wasted money there. But I wasn't a renter. But I should have bought, like I said, a duplex or a 3-unit back then instead of the single-family house. It was a beautiful house. I loved it. But like I said, it was expensive, and that's what I should have done back then. So that was it. Anyway, I see somebody here, she has 2 videos of her dog. Yeah, I got my dogs are on my profile from way back when I got on TikTok and before I realized how to use TikTok, I got to give credit to my friend Jack, who actually was on here earlier. Jack is, of course, you have to give credit to the teenagers, the high school students, because they're the ones who know technology. So he taught me how to do the TikTok, and get on here, and I appreciate that because, like I said, I wanted to use it creatively. There's so many other people with talents on TikTok, that's for sure. I mean, I can't get over some of the stuff, the fun jokes, the humor, some of the dancing, the quality dancing. I love it, and that's something that I can't do. I can try, but I can't. So that's why I leave that for the professionals, and this is my niche where I can share my life experiences with people. Is the live what I expected? I guess so. I'm happy. I'm using my iPad so I can see the writing with my glasses because I have really bad eyes. I wear contact lenses and reading glasses, and I have bad eyes. So it's actually a little bit better because at least I feel like I'm not, looking at the screen. I'm actually sitting back and I can read the questions. So it is kind of cool. I've watched a few people's lives myself, to try to get an idea of what it's all about. The problem is the lives that I find are just people sitting there, like staring at the screen, not doing anything. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Showing a tattoo here and there. I mean, but in the morning I found a couple of cool lives. I saw one this morning with a crane, moving stuff, dredging out a river and stuff. So there are some cool lives. There's a lobster one that I like. The guy's live lobsterman because I love lobster, so that's cool. So the live is kind of cool. I like it. because I feel more comfortable. Maybe I'll do it again if people want me to. I mean, I obviously it only works if there's people on here asking questions. So let's see. Two people talking to each other on a split screen. Oh, yeah, so I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. My daughter got me on TikTok. So that's what happens. My daughter, she's 13. She's the one who taught me how to do TikTok. She's the one who got me to do that first dance. If you look way back at my videos, we did the first dance, me, my daughter, my son. So my daughter got me, on there. But I got to tell you, from then, I started scrolling and watching and scrolling. I wasn't doing any content. And I found it to be educational. So there's so many educational things on TikTok. The iPhone hacks, the iPhone tricks, things like that. We bought a hot tub, and I wanted to get a cover for the hot tub. There was a cool one on TikTok, and I found the company that made it. So TikTok itself, I've learned it is educational. So when people think it's just kids dancing or whatever it is, teenagers half naked, that's not necessarily true. There are some really good educational stuff. And, I like comedy, so I like watching the jokes. The funny comedians, Jim Gaffigan, I like seeing that. So I follow a lot of the comedians and some of the stars, celebrities on TikTok. I follow that. But anyway, what's my favorite jazz album? Oh, that's a good question. That's a real good question. Because I do like music. So, I have very eclectic taste in music. I listen to all different types of music. Everyone laughs at me when they're in my car. Because I will go from Disturbed, the metal band Disturbed. I will go from Disturbed to the Avett Brothers, to Taylor Swift. So what happens is I jump around in my car listening to different music. David Bowie, Van Morrison. Van Morrison is probably one of my favorites that I like, and Mumford and Sons. So I listen to a lot of different types of music. So that's why everyone laughs at me. Neil Diamond. I like Neil Diamond, the old Neil Diamond stuff. So probably from when I used to be a DJ. I liked a lot of the older music. And blues, I love the blues. So that's the type of eclectic music I have from when I was a DJ. But even now, I find myself listening to a lot of different music. And then some of the newer stuff. Everyone laughs at me because I even I listen to pop radio in the car a lot, and I like some of the newer stuff. Some of it I can't stand. And I know it's for the kids, but some of the newer stuff I like as well. All right, I have to run now. I think your first live was awesome. I made a point to see. I appreciate that. Yeah, Avett Brothers. I like the Avett Brothers. They're just so let's see. I had a landlord try to evict me because I have kids, but she made me put a deposit on the kids. Well, that's against the law in Rhode Island. You can't put a deposit on the kids. You can put a deposit on pets, unless they're a service animal. You can't put a deposit on pets. But on kids, no, that's against the law. In fact, regarding deposits in Rhode Island, you're only allowed to charge 1 month rent deposit. You can for the security deposit. So how somebody say first and last. Well, there's no such thing as that. You're only allowed to charge 1 month security deposit, and it cannot be used as rent unless they move out or you evict them. You go to court, and the judge allows you to use the security deposit for rent. So that's a wives' tale when, especially in Rhode Island, people say, I'm going to charge first and last. You're not allowed to do that. Now, I wish you were allowed to do that only because a tenant who's been evicted in the past who might be questionable, I would probably give them more of a chance if I had more of a deposit. So in that case where the deposit law is there to protect the tenant, it also hurts the tenants who might need the help. And that's where I feel like the deposit thing's a little antiquated, that they should really revisit that, because I would love to give somebody who may have had a challenged past, younger, irresponsible past, but might be responsible now. You want to give them a chance, but by giving them that chance, charge a little bit more deposit. That way, they have a little more skin in the game, and will be helped to be more responsible. So the deposits on kids is absolutely against the law. If anybody ever did that in Rhode Island, you can call the Office of Human Rights, and because that's absolutely wrong. Cannot do that. So here's what's funny. So you're an honest guy. Would you like a life in politics? So funny story. 16 years ago, I ran for mayor in one of the local towns. I came in third place. I ran as an independent, and I came in third place as an independent. Became very friendly with the mayor who won, and but yeah, so I did. I think I got like 1,300 votes, and I came in third place. So that was kind of a funny thing. It was my one and done time for politics. The problem that I have is that because I say it how it is, I would end up, putting my foot in my mouth, and that's why I wouldn't be a good politician. I'll leave that up to the guys that can be good politicians. And I do have a lot of respect for, the mayor of my city. I'm friends with the mayor, the current mayor now. Really, really nice guy, good mayor. Really has the city's best interest in his mind. He's not looking at future, aspirations. He is looking at our city in his best interest, and I love that. Who's my brother Die Hard? Who the hell's my brother Die Hard? I love your brother Die Hard. Who's that? Overall, it is worth getting into rentals. Yes, it absolutely is. It all depends on what your goal is. Originally, my goal was, again, to have my retirement. This was my retirement, or is my retirement. When I retire, the rentals will be my income. I never had a traditional job, so though I have a small 401k, I never really had a 401k until a few years ago. Never really had a savings until a few years ago because my money went back into the properties. So yeah, I would say it's worth it. It's what your goal is, whatever your goal is, what you're going to use the property for. People that think that you're going to buy property and all of a sudden become rich, that is not the case. Unless you're rich already and you buy property. But I mean, I have mortgages on most of my properties. I borrow the money. I pay a mortgage every month. Taxes, insurance. So it's one of those things where I might make a little bit of money on a property, but it's over volume. If I have 5 properties, I make more money. So people that think that every landlord is rich and wealthy, and no, that's not the case. Maybe if you're in Manhattan, New York, all right, I'll give you that. But the normal everyday landlord that owns a few properties, they're making a living. My wife has a full-time job. She doesn't work for me. She goes out and she works. She's an attorney. She does family law, adoptions, divorces. And that's what I said the other day on TikTok. She and I have a very good understanding. I don't screw up and she won't divorce me. Let's see. I have to set up mods. I don't even know what a mod is. Is that some term that I don't know? You might have to explain yourself to me. Sorry. Oh, I got roses. Thank you very much. Thank you. I like roses. They smell very good too, by the way. Don't you think that the renters should renters should be, the mortgages instead of, okay, so that's a good question. So not everybody is meant to own property, which I've learned over the years. I mean, what happens is there are some people that just want to be tenants. They don't want to have the responsibilities of owning a home, fixing a hot water heater, fixing a heater. They just don't want that responsibility. It's not whether they can afford it. It might just be mentally they don't want the responsibility of owning their own home. There are some people that just can't, don't have the good credit and can't get a mortgage. So there's lots of reasons why people are renters. It's not always because, they can't afford it or whatever. Sometimes people want to be renters. Like they don't want their responsibilities. Just like when people buy a condo in a complex, they don't have to worry about doing the outside repairs, the outside service. You have a condo association that takes care of that. So don't always assume that, landlords are taking advantage of these poor people. No, some people want to be tenants. They want to, if you live by yourself, maybe you don't want to live in a big house, you'd rather rent an apartment somewhere. So there's lots of reasons why people are tenants, and I try not to assume why they're a tenant. Or, but again, somebody might say, well, $1,000, $1,200 a month is what a mortgage would be. Well, yeah, minus the taxes, insurance, upkeep, repairs, all that stuff. So, when you're paying $1,000 and everything's included, minus the utilities, then still being a tenant is actually a pretty good deal for some people. I see. If you get bad people, mods can control your mute. All right. So was your first unit a fixer-upper? No, actually it was. So it's funny. That's the building. So I bought a 10-unit building. It was in a beautiful area. It's a waterfront piece of property in Cranston, Rhode Island. So I bought this property. It did come from my ice cream shop. And talk about fixer-upper. It was built in 1770. I don't think it was renovated since 1770. In fact, one of the apartments upstairs, absolute truth, we went up in the apartment, we opened up the bathroom, or I had the toilet and a sink. The shower was in another, you open up a closet, there was a kiddie pool with a hose with a spigot, and that was the shower in the bathroom. No word of a lie, that was the very first building I ever bought. That was the first apartment I ever renovated. So that was a fixer-upper. The other thing that was funny there was, so there was a barber shop still there's a barber shop there, and an ice cream shop that I bought. Well, the barber shop and the ice cream shop, they shared a back hallway, because we're talking the building was 200 years old. So they shared a back hallway and a bathroom. So what happened was every day we'd come in, and just the nature of the beast, because the heating system was forced hot air, there was hair floating around all the time. The hair in the ice cream was gross. So the very first thing we did was put up a wall and divide them up. So nobody noticed that before, So that was, the very, very first building I bought. So yes, that was a fixer-upper, and that needed a lot of work. Now it is fixed up. It's a really nice building, long-term tenants, and I still have the ice cream shop in there. So that's what happened there. Do I buy condos? So as a flip, I would buy a condo. In fact, I just did, before the pandemic, I bought a one-bedroom condo that was, again, outdated. It was built in 1970, Waterview condo in East Greenwich, Rhode Island. I bought that at the auction, went through, fixed it up, put a new kitchen in, granite, stainless steel, and I sold that one. So yeah, we do buy, we would buy condos. But I buy them just to flip them. I don't think I would buy one because of the condo fees. It wouldn't be financially feasible for us to take it and rent it and make some money with it. I saw part one of your ice cream new buyers suing you. What was the outcome? So the outcome of that was, and that was a crazy time in my life. The outcome of that was that it was a jury trial, and the jury completely voted in my favor, and that woman got 0. Her lawyer got 0. He deserved 0. He invaded my family's privacy with private investigators, following us around, taking pictures. He got 0. In fact, it cost him money. And they completely, he shot for the moon, he went for the home run, and he struck out. And I got very lucky. Because during that trial, I was so nervous, stressed out, ill from it. I made them an offer of $50,000, which I was going to go take out a loan, and just to get rid of them out of my life. And they turned it down, and I'm glad they did, because we finished the trial, and the jury were wonderful jury, and they saw through the lawyer's bullshit and through her bullshit and the lies, and so that was nice. A down payment is very hard for some people, especially with rental property. So, when you're buying a house now, there's all kinds of programs. You get no money down. In Rhode Island, you can actually get the deposit as a loan for a single-family house, and even with a two-family. But with rental properties, 5 units, 6 units, 7 units, yes, you need 20 to 25% down. So it is tough to come up with that 20, 25% down. So I agree with that. Typically, what you do is you start off with a single-family duplex, have that for a few years, then refinance it, take the cash out of that as your down payment for a bigger property. And that's what you do. You kind of piggyback and grow that way. And that's kind of how I did it. Again, all my money went back into the property. So what I would do is I would, refinance it, take the cash out, and buy another piece of property. And that's how I did it. Because a down payment is, very difficult to come by. So that's how I did that. So, no way, why were they suing me? So what happened was some of my properties, commercial properties, because I know the ice cream business, I had opened up some ice cream shops. It's easy for me to do. I know how to go through the Department of Health, the zoning, the building department. So what I would do is if I had a piece of property that I thought would be a good ice cream shop, I would actually build an ice cream shop in there, run it for a year, build it up, and I would then sell the business, and then, of course, I end up with a tenant. So I've done that 3 times. Well, one of the times I did it, this particular tenant bought the ice cream shop. She decided that she knew better, so she stopped selling Dell's frozen lemonade, which is very popular here in Rhode Island, in New England. She stopped selling Dell's, so she changed the business model. She stopped selling ice cream shakes, and she started making fruit smoothies, and she added that to her menu. So she kind of turned it into a smoothie place. So she changed the business model. She didn't do any advertising. So at the end of the year, she didn't make nearly as much money as she could have or should have. And what did she do? She turned around and blamed me, said that I lied to her about the numbers, that I gave her fake documents, which I have one profit and loss statement that I gave her that we used in court as evidence. And she tried to use that against me. I used it as my defense. So she tried suing me, and the lawyer that she found all these laws where I defrauded her so I can pay punitive damages of $200,000, and then she can get 3 times the money back that what I told her she'd make, which was $80,000, another $200,000. So she was suing me for $380,000. This lawyer was suing me for $380,000. So it was a jury trial, just like you see on TV. It was amazing. I went there with my lawyer. You question the jurors, you pick the jurors, just like on Bull. I actually, it's funny. I love the show Bull. If you like show Bull, it was just like that. You question the jurors and you pick the jurors. It was a jury trial, and the first couple of days it didn't look good for me. But then all of a sudden it turned around once the evidence started making my case and my defense, and the jury saw right through our bullshit, and so that worked out well. So I didn't have to pay a dime, and they, of course, I offered them 50. They took 0. They laughed. In fact, the lawyer was so arrogant. He laughed when we made that offer. It was in a conference room. He laughed and he walked out of the room, and he got 0. He got 0. Now, here's a funny story, side story to that. So the next morning we come to court. So there's a parking garage down in the basement. So it's pouring rain. So we go into the parking garage, and I drive up, and the attendant is there. He has his black coat on, a black hat, similar to this. So I open up the windows. I said, "Sir, do I just leave it here, or do I park it?" So my lawyer was driving with me, Heath. He says, "Jeff," he says, "that's the other lawyer." It was the actual other lawyer that was suing me. It wasn't even the parking attendant. So I thought that was kind of funny. So I think he probably thought I did it on purpose, but I didn't. But that was a funny story. I mean, going through that stressful time, it was funny just to have that happen. So that's yeah. It is very interesting. Ceiling fan. Somebody noticed it earlier, so that's why I pointed it out and I turned it on. At what point does a landlord recommend increasing the rent? So that's a really good question, because people think, "Oh, you charge a ton for rent." So first of all, I can't charge too much, because if you charge too much, the tenants move out. And if you have an apartment that's empty for 1 month, you're not going to recuperate that. Think about it. That's basically 10% of the year income if you have an empty apartment. So the last thing I want to do is have an empty apartment. So what I typically do is rent only goes up for 2 reasons. One is if the expenses drastically go up. If they have an assessment of the property taxes, insurance, utilities, house utilities that I pay for. If those go up, then I have to look at increasing the rent. The other reason to increase the rent is if the tenant is a pain in the ass. Okay, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If a tenant there are certain tenants that just are complainers, chronic complainers. They're lonely. They want a reason to call the office and complain. So you know what? I always say, if you don't hear from a tenant, that's a good tenant. In fact, it's funny. My friend Joe, he used to be my partner in the nightclub. So he works for me, but he's a tenant in a building, and he's the best tenant. Like he said, my refrigerator breaks. I don't call my landlord. I don't want to bother my landlord because I don't want my rent to go up. I'm like, well, Joe, you are a little bit drastic. You can get your refrigerator fixed. But he does not like to bother his landlord at all. But yeah, so that's the 2 times that I would consider rent going up. If a tenant is really busting our balls, or if we have expenses that drastically increase. So that's what happens there. I don't know where my wife bought that ceiling fan. Like I said, I got it for Christmas one year. It's a really cool fan, and I've never seen anything like that. So I don't know where she got it, but I've probably had it 10 years now. Do you stick with multifamilies, or do you buy single families as well? So multifamilies is primarily what I purchased, but I do buy the single families at the auction. So what I did was, 3 years ago, I started buying a lot of single families. At one point, we were up to 40 single family houses that always were slated to be remodeled and sold. But what I did was we would rent them. So what we would do is, because we can't get to all of them, and I'm borrowing the money to buy them. I have mortgages on all of them. So what I would do is I'll rent them, so that way I have the house. When I can get to it, with my team, then we can get to it. But I do have right now, I have 3 single families that we're renting out right now, but eventually those will be sold. So typically I don't keep the single families long term. We remodel them and we sell them. It doesn't make sense financially because by the time you pay the taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance on them, you're not making any money on them. The only way you make money on the single families is by remodeling them and selling them. So let's see what else is there. My landlord is threatening me. What's an eviction because I won't know his property, I won't show his property. I assume you're saying won't show his property. Well, so if I'm selling a piece of property, I try to give my tenant, we give our tenants proper notice, hey, we're selling the property. What happens though is I tell the tenant, if you're under a lease, the lease goes with the property. So they can't get kicked out. If I sell a piece of property and somebody's into their lease for 2 months and there's 10 months left on the lease, they can't get kicked out. That lease goes with the property. So the tenant is protected. So there's no reason why, as long as you have a lease, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to be cooperative and show the property. I went to look at a piece of property a couple months ago, and the tenant was being uncooperative with the owner and with the real estate agent. The tenant was absolutely being uncooperative. So I said to the real estate agent, you tell the tenant they can let me look at the apartment now, because I'm going to end up buying the property. If I do, and they're uncooperative now, they will get evicted as soon as I buy the property. And they let me go in, and they're still there today. So it was a matter of just letting them know at that point, where I stood. If you want to be difficult in our first meeting, our very first opportunity to meet each other, if that's going to be our relationship, I'd rather get rid of you right now. So that's how that works. How do I throw out my son? That's the toughest one. I bought a piece of property where a son lived there. That's a tough one. How do you throw out your son? Other than you selling your house, you could tell your son, look, I'm going to rent you an apartment. I'm going to pay the first month rent. You move in. Now it's up to you. But that's a tough one when parents, have the kids living with them and the kids, are kind of enabled and or just don't want to move out. But it's interesting. I lived with my parents until I was 30 years old. Of course, my friends would give me a hard time. Jeff, you still have to do it. I have a great relationship with my parents. I always did. When I lived with them, I had my own, room downstairs, and so I enjoyed living with my parents. Why move out just for the sake of moving out? It wasn't like I was looking to do something that was, secretive. So it's all, depending on the family, dynamics, I guess you would say. But that's a tough one. How do you kick out your son? I mean, I don't know how old he is, but if he has a job, you just tell him, it's time to go out on your own. But I've seen some adult parents actually sell their house. It's the only way they were able to get rid of their kid. I bought a house. True story. I bought an apartment house. And in fact, it's in West Warwick. And so I bought the house. The owners sold it to me. I took over ownership. And they had 2 kids in their 30s living in the house that would not move out. They would not move out. They lived in the house with them, but the kids, when they sold it, refused to leave. So you really probably can't do it now. This was 12, 13 years ago. I had my maintenance crew go over there because it was the first day I owned it, and it was in the middle of winter. We took all the doors and windows out of the apartment. We were going to renovate the apartment anyway. So it was kind of comical because we took the doors and windows out of the apartment, and all of a sudden the kids realized, oh shit, we got to get out. So they pick up their mattresses, their beds, they put it on the roof of their cars, tying it with rope, and then you see them driving down the road. So, we kind of forced them out. But it was crazy that they were refusing to leave anyway. So that's something you probably can't get away with now. I probably have to go through the eviction process. But I would have to take that on a case-by-case basis. You could do this. Ask him if he wants an apartment and ask him if he'll co-sign. So that's true. This is somebody suggesting to the one that wants to get rid of their son, maybe you get him to get an apartment, you co-sign for the apartment. The problem with that, obviously, if the son moves out of the apartment, now the parents are on the hook for the rest of the lease that they co-signed. So that's a problem too. I was just scrolling. Where do I get a ceiling fan like that? I don't know. I'm going to have to try to find out. I'll have to go through some records and see where my wife bought that fan. And I'll have to post it on TikTok on my next live. Because, like I said, the fan was off and then somebody noticed it, so I turned it on. But it is a nice fan. It really is a nice fan. So I will try to find out. lobster boil. So somebody put on here lobster boil. So yeah, I did do a live lobster boil a few months ago when I had my employee party, and that was a live, but I didn't answer questions. I just stuck the camera up and put it live. So that was interesting. So that's on there. And let's see, who else is on here? Any other questions, I guess? Did I answer all the questions that came in yesterday? I think I did. I asked people to send me questions. If I start over today, would I be a landlord? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, here we go. Oh, so here's one. So when you move a tenant out, we have to hire a third-party moving company, and they move their belongings. They pack the belongings. They move it into a storage unit. They rent the storage unit. The constable rents the storage unit. We don't. We have to pay. So if it costs $1,500, we have to pay the $1,500. Everything goes into storage. The tenants cannot touch their stuff. They cannot get access to their stuff unless they pay the constable the $1,500. Not what they owe us in rent, just what they owe for us to move them out. They have to pay the constable. The constable will pay the storage unit, and then the people can get their stuff back. If they don't pay the storage unit, then it goes to auction and gets sold off, just like on TV and Storage Wars. How do you collect rent from a moratorium deadbeat? Well, the only way you can do it is you do have to go to court. You have to get a judgment for what they owe you, and then you give it to a bill collecting attorney and let that attorney chase the tenant. I wouldn't waste my time on that. I would just give it to a bill collecting attorney. They take a third. It's worth it. It really is. Out of sight, out of mind. Re-rent the apartment, get somebody paying rent, and look forward. And that's what I do when I try to get somebody out of an apartment, or I get somebody out of I just try to re-rent it as quick as possible and move forward. And that's what we do. How many employees do you have in the property side of your business? Well, right now I probably have, let's see, I have plumbers, electricians. It varies because we have some openings. But right now we have 16 full-time employees in that part of the business, 16 full-time employees. And we have openings for carpenters and painters. What happens is when we don't have flip houses to work on, then we'll go into our apartments. And if an apartment's an older apartment, we want to renovate it, we'll go in the apartment and renovate it and fix it. My plumber just today finished installing brand new heating systems in one of the buildings, 5 brand new high efficiency heating systems. He finished that today. So what happens though is, so that was a project. That took a month to do that. It's 5 heating systems in one building. But if we have an emergency like a leaky toilet, he'll break off that and go fix the leaky toilet, or hot water heater. We had a hot water heater break today, so tomorrow morning he'll go change out the hot water heater. How do you get started with rental? Well, like I said, I got started just I bought that first building and I went from there. What happened was when I bought the building, like I said, it was a real fixer-upper. Once I fixed it up, it was worth more money, so I was able to borrow money against it. So a lot of the properties I buy are fixer-uppers. Can I say I bought them from slumlords? Yeah, in some cases I bought them from slumlords. And from, I hate to use the term slumlord, but what it was is it's lazy lords. They're lazy. In other words, it's a lot of stuff. Just send somebody over and clean up the yard, clean up the basement, clean up the hallways, paint the trim. It's simple stuff, okay? But it's just lazy, and I'll just keep taking the money, keep taking the money, keep taking the money. I have full-time painters that we actually have like a priority list. Hey, that building, go paint that hallway, go paint the front door. But a lot of them are lazy landlords. The biggest problem that I have with landlords is when they don't go by the book and they allow tenants to fall months behind in their rent, where they can't even go after them. One of my good friends is a landlord, and he is not on top of collecting the rent every month like he should by the book. Because what happens is the tenants fall so far behind, then it's like, oh, now I have to pay $250 or $300 to have a lawyer, a victim, on top of the $4,000 they owe me. That's why we don't let it go that long. So that's what we do. Do you use any vendors? So we do use vendors once in a while. So prior to me having an electrician, I used, and obviously I used an electrical contractor. Before me having a plumber, I would use an outside plumber. But as far as my properties go, fire alarm systems, my electrician installs them. I actually design the plans. I learned how to design the plans for the fire alarm systems. So I did that early on when it became a law. They had the fire alarm systems in 4 units above, so I designed the plans, draw up the plans, and then my electrician, goes and gets the permits and he installs the fire alarm systems. So, but again, I used to use fire alarm vendors for that. So I really don't use vendors, outside vendors much for the rental properties. The granite count, yeah, I guess for like installing granite, we use an outside granite company because obviously we don't cut granite. So that would be a vendor that we would use to come in and install granite. That's another thing that I do. So even in the low income areas, it doesn't matter. Whatever apartment I'm renovating now always gets granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. The reason being is, and this is my philosophy on that, is if they live in a really nice apartment, they don't want to lose that really nice apartment, no matter where they live. So that's why we fix them up nice with the granite and stainless steel in the low-income areas, because they will appreciate it, I think, more. It seems to have worked for us. I don't know if it works for everybody, but for us, we do that. Yeah, the fan is awesome. I'll tell you, everybody loves my fan. You know what? I could have just done a live and left the fan going, and we'll have everybody watch the fan all night. You know, it's no different than watching, these girls that just sit and stare at the screen. So do I look in a certain cap rate when purchasing a purchase based on future potential? That's a good question. I don't buy properties based on future potential because I don't know what the situation is going to arise if I'm going to be able to do the repairs or do the upgrades to the property. So I buy a property based on the numbers now. If it works for me now, then I'll buy the property. Very often, if you're a real estate agent, they always try to market the properties on its potential. Oh, the rents are below market, but it can do this. The rents are below market, can do this. I bought a property the other day where the property is a fixer-upper, the rents are below market, but I paid less for the if this property was in great shape. If this property was all fixed up in good shape, it was worth $750,000, $800,000. The property is complete fixer-upper, so it's only worth $400,000. But I bought it based on that because I'm not going to look at the potential. Yeah, eventually it will be nice, but I'm not going to buy it, spend more money on it now when I have to put money into it. So I don't ever buy based on potential. I buy based on what it is now, and then I make it to reach its potential. That way, I also always have equity in it. If you buy it based on potential, you're overpaying, and that means once the market goes down, and it will, then you're going to be upside down in your mortgage. So let's see what else is there. I guess that. Any other questions? Let me see if I can scroll down, see if I missed one. I think I got them all. I hate to miss a question. I feel bad. I have a guilty conscience. Would I build a rental from scratch? So that's a really good question. I did once. It was a challenge. What happened was I bought a building in 2006. I owned it for 3 months. An old lady was driving up the road in a 2-seater Jaguar convertible, and she's okay, but she wasn't paying attention. She lost control. She literally drove. It was a single-story building. Drove right through the building, literally right through the building, out in the front, out the back. It was on the news. That's how I found out about it. I was watching the news. I said, hey, that's my building. So that building had to be demolished. We had to start from the ground up. It was a duplex, a commercial building. We had to start from the ground up and rebuild the building. So I did do that one. It was a challenge because I'd never done it before. A lot of learning curves. And I was lucky because it was right when Dwayne started working with me. Dwayne's my foreman now. He's been with me since he started with me in 2004. This was 2 years later. So Dwayne was very, very good in helping getting that building rebuilt. But more than from the ground up, that one there was a drastic measure. More times than not, we buy a property where we have to gut it and just, we leave the bones, we leave the outside, the structure, but we gut it and we rebuild the whole house. I'll remodel the house. I will do that. New insulation, sheetrock, paint, mechanicals, utilities, all that. I will do that. I like doing that because then I know the property is going to be good for me for forever, or as long as I'm going to be around anyway. Eviction moratorium, $12,000 in lost rent. Can I collect from the government or state for my loss? You can only collect from the government state, I don't know where you are, but in Rhode Island, as if the tenant is there and cooperates with you and fills out the paperwork for the rent. They didn't have the rent to pay, and then they fill out the paperwork, and then you can recuperate the rent. If they moved out and the apartment's empty, I don't see how you're going to be able to collect the lost rent. Though, as I mentioned earlier, I think this whole pandemic, the moratorium was handled completely wrong. I think that the court system should have handled it. I think that the landlord should have been the one to apply for the rent, rent relief, not the tenants, because some of the tenants are lazy. depressed, even to be depression. I want to say lazy, depressed. They just lost their job. The pandemic hit. They're depressed. They don't have the forethought. They're not thinking straight to apply for the rent relief. So I really think that it should have been up to the landlords and the courts to handle the rent relief. It just was not done right, and that was a problem. So that's the story with that. Anyway, let's see what else was there. But yeah, that was a good question. Let's see. My wife is going to be thrilled that everyone loves the ceiling fan. She is actually going to be thrilled. Because how many people ever see the ceiling fan, right? Now we have a bunch of people saying it. So she's going to be thrilled that so many people like her ceiling fan. So the issue is with me is that, again, like I was saying earlier, that sometimes I, call people out, say it how it is. That could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing. And so that being said, I try to be honest. My lawyer taught me something a long time ago, and I think I said it on TikTok the other day, that, as far as lying goes, if you lie, that means you have to have a really good memory so you can remember your lie. So if you don't lie, you tell the truth, you don't have to have any memory. And it's true. And I try to do that. I mean, obviously, everyone tells a white lie here and there, but for the most part, I think that adage is really, really true, stands true. That if you don't lie, then you don't have to have a good memory. You just tell the truth. So that's why when somebody says you're an honest guy, I try to stand by that. There's two sides to a story. The landlord has their side. The tenants have their side. We try to explain to the tenants, communicate with us when there's a problem, have patience, and when there's an emergency or a problem, and at the same time, for instance, we'll get the tenant, I'm not paying my rent because my sink's leaking. Well, that's not a reason not to pay the rent. But if you need your sink fixed, fill out a maintenance request. We'll get over there as soon as we can. We'll fix the leaky sink. The last thing we want is a leaky sink. Why? Because that costs money. That's water that's, being wasted. So we appreciate it bringing it to our attention, but we might have something more important. We might have a hot water heater. Somebody needs hot water. Or if it's the winter, some heating system might be down. So we try to we prioritize the emergencies. We try to do that as much as we can. So that's the story with that. The video I put on earlier today, the toilet paper training video, that is actually a true training video. So for my ice cream shops, in fact, so my nephew Andrew and Tim, they're both property managers, but they were actually in the restaurant business prior to working for me. In fact, Tim was a district manager for a national chain. So they have some great ideas. So for my ice cream shops, I have 3 ice cream shops, 45 employees. We hire kids as young as 14 who've never had a job before. And we try to hire 14, 15, 16-year-olds. That way they'll come back every year. So the reason I'm telling you about the toilet paper story is because I have 3 different stores. And we wanted to train the kids at the 3 stores all the same. So Tim said, hey, Jeff, why don't you make videos, training videos? And you can do a video, training video at the store, whatever it is, making a shake, making a banana split, making an ice cream cone, a swirl. Make training videos, and we can email them to the 45 employees. They can watch the video, and they'll all learn the same way. So this was back in early June. Great idea. And that's what really got me the idea of, hey, why don't I go on and do TikToks? So what happened was, at the stores, the toilet paper was always running out because they're kids, they're 14-year-old kids. So my father the other day said, Jeff, do a training video on toilet paper. So that is a real training video that did go out to the staff, just reminding them to put the toilet paper on the toilet paper holder. But we've done training videos about washing the floor, counting the registers, and I try to keep them short, like TikToks, because I want to keep their interest, the kids' interest. What's interesting is the training videos have worked. And I think it's worked because of the technology. I would try sending them texts or emails. They don't want to hear from me with texts and emails. But as soon as I send them a video, which was a short video, it was almost like a TikTok or a short YouTube video or Instagram, the kids seemed to key into that, and it worked. It worked. They started listening, and they started doing the right thing. So the training videos worked. So I give Tim kudos for that. And that's where, when I hire people from outside of the industry, they come in with some really good ideas. So I give Tim kudos. That was a great idea, and it's worked out real well. Let's see, what else was there? Here's somebody started with duplex and moved into larger complexes. Yeah, so I have some duplexes now. I started with an 8-unit, 10-unit. I have some 6 units. And like I said, I am moving into a 40-unit complex that I'm buying. We're closing on next month. It's 40 apartments. That's the biggest one that I'll own, and we're getting that next month. I'm in the process of getting a building. I bought an old nursing home, a closed-down nursing home, 36,000 square feet. We're in the process of getting the approvals to make that into 50 apartments, which would be a huge project. I'll have to hire an outside company to come in and do the whole job. It's not something I want any interest in doing. But I may even sell that too. I've had some interest in that, and I may sell that because it's beyond me. It's not in my purview. I want to stay focused. So that's a little bit different. Let's see, what else is there? Let's see, did I get everybody? Let's see. You chose someone else. I don't know who I chose. Share your live video. I don't know how to do that. I will find out about the ceiling fan. I'm really happy about the ceiling fan. I'm glad everyone likes the ceiling fans. Let's see. My husband and I own a tub and countertop resurfacing business and are having a hard time hiring. Yeah, everyone's having a hard time hiring. You know what? Give it a couple weeks, because when the unemployment runs out, I think people are going to be looking for jobs. They have to, because where are they going to get their money from? Everyone's having a hard time hiring. That is the worst part. Even with us, we're so far behind right now on remodeling. That's been very stressful because we can't hire people. It's been very difficult. In all my businesses, my waste business, we can't hire truck drivers. We're short on truck drivers. And so that's a problem. I'm short painters, short carpenters in the real estate business. So it's very, very difficult right now. I go into restaurants. So during the pandemic, I support all the local restaurants. We went out, my wife and I, my family, we went out. We just stayed busy, stayed working, stayed going out. And I feel bad for the local restaurants because, you go to a restaurant right now, you might get challenging service. I'll call it challenging service, bad service. But I can't blame the restaurant. You can't blame the waiters, waitresses. They're short-staffed. What are you supposed to do? Nobody wants to work. It's a challenge. It's depressing. And the problem that I have is, and I'll get over it, but knowing that in a few weeks, people are going to be applying for all these jobs, and I know damn well they sat at home on their ass collecting unemployment, and the only reason they're out right now is because the unemployment ran out. So they really don't want to work for me. They really don't want to be a painter or a carpenter. They want to sit at home. So that's a problem. I took a day off last Tuesday. I took a day off because I worked on Saturday. So I went to the local casino to play a little blackjack, which I like to do. So I was there at 11 o'clock. I came out at noontime. And I could not believe, I had never been there during the day, during a work day. I couldn't believe when I came out there, I should have taken a picture. In fact, I'm going to go there one day this week, and I'm going to shoot a video. Carpenters' trucks, painters' trucks, plumbers' trucks, all these trades, all these mechanics that aren't working were at the casino gambling at 12 o'clock noon on a Tuesday. I was really, really disappointed when I saw that. You know what I'm saying? I was disappointed. I mean, I guess one could say maybe they took the day off too, but you know what? I took the day off. I own the property. My guys are all working. My people were at work that day. But to see these carpenters and painters and parked in the casino parking lot, go at night after work. So that was a little disappointing. But again, are they collecting unemployment and have the bonus, In your state, can a person find out the previous tenant's rent? So you can ask the previous tenant. The best thing to do is get a rental history from the previous tenant, who their last landlord was. And you call up the last landlord. How much was the rent? How were they as a tenant? Did they pay every month? Did they pay on time? So that's the other thing too. You, just by asking questions, getting as much information up front. So let's see what else. I don't know where I bought the fan, but I'm going to tell you right now. I think I'm going to buy 1,000 of these fans and I'll put them on TikTok for sale. That's what I'm going to do. All right. Let's see. Leaky sink mold, possibly. So that's a good point. So here's what's interesting about mold. If I had a dime for every time somebody said they had mold, I'd be a millionaire. And I'm not a millionaire. Okay? I would be wealthy. Really wealthy. What happens is mold just doesn't appear out of the blue. It takes a while. First you have to have dampness, then you have to have mildew, and then it becomes a mold, standing water, something that's not cleaned up. So it takes a while for it to become mold. But yes, everybody who calls, it's mold. If you have a black a black shingle roof on your roof, and it rains, and the water comes through on the white ceiling, uh-oh, I got black mold. No, you don't. You have shingle dust coming through. So, but yeah, obviously you don't want to have leaky faucets. You don't want to have moisture, mildew. That will turn into mold. Then it becomes a problem. But when I tell you that every time people say we have mold, we actually have mold test kits in the office. We've never actually had mold. It's either dirt, or just muddy, stain. Stain is a stain. So we'll, so that's what's funny anyway. Where am I? I'm in Rhode Island. We are in Rhode Island. Cool fan. I know it. I'm going into the fan business. Another business that I'm going to own. Where's the casino? Well, the casino I went to the other day that everyone was parked at was Twin River. It's in Lincoln, Rhode Island. So it's funny, that casino's been there for 10 years. I had never been there until a month ago. I usually go to the Connecticut casinos. I went there for the first time a month ago. I enjoyed it. It was quiet. It was nice. No smoking. Nobody bothered me. It was a really nice time. I don't drink, not because I'm against drinking. I just don't drink. I never find anything I like. And I don't smoke. So I take that money and I gamble with it. So let's see. I got charged $180 for cooling tech to come turn a stupid switch on in our house. It's quite pricey. Yeah, I got to tell you something. There is such a shortage of tradespeople, plumbers, electricians, HVAC people, such a shortage that it's a supply and demand thing, and they are getting top dollar. And this goes back to, no student left behind, everybody go to school, go to college, become a computer tech, write software, write programs. But you know what? A license to print money is a licensed electrician, a licensed plumber, a licensed HVAC person, $75, $80 an hour. I mean, that's not a good income. $3,000, that's $200,000 a year, and that's just working by yourself. If you start a business, think about it. So yeah, it's unfortunate that it is so expensive right now to pay, and that's one of the reasons why I just hired the full-time people to work for me, because they work for me full-time. I can keep them busy. I have enough friends that if they need this fixed, that fixed, I can send them out, and at my cost, I can at least cover their salary. But it is a shame, though, that young kids are not going into the trades as much as they used to, and the trades pay very, very well. Very well. I'm impressed when I meet a licensed plumber, a licensed electrician. They went through the schooling, they learned. I mean, and they can make the money, and they deserve it. They deserve it. They went through the process of getting their licenses. But it's a shame though, because there is such a shortage right now. They actually can charge more, supply and demand. So that's the story. I play blackjack at the casino. I love blackjack. I play blackjack, and I love it. It's the only game I love. So because I don't like to waste money, 20 years ago when I wanted to learn how to play blackjack, I actually bought a video online. It's like $19 for a videotape that came out. It was a professional gambler. I watched the video, learned how to play blackjack by watching this video like 20 times, memorizing it. In fact, I still have the video today because every once in a while I like to refresh myself on it because there's a lot of things to it. And I learned how to play, so at least that way when I go, I'm not just throwing money away. I actually feel like I know what I'm doing. So I do enjoy playing blackjack. It's fun. It's a great time. And I like to just to pass the time sometimes. When I'm playing, my mind is clear. I'm not thinking about tenants, rent, building inspectors, stress, insurance. I'm not thinking any of that stuff. I'm just enjoying myself for that few moments. Cool fan. It is a cool fan. I know it is a cool fan. Third-year apprentice, 2340. So that's great, third-year apprentice. So, what's next? Your journeyman, and what, and are you HVAC, plumber, electrician? That's good, because the amount of, so here's a union electrician, so that's interesting. So, $250 an hour. So, it's interesting, because my business is not union, but I have a lot of respect for union laborers, electricians. My audiovisual business, when we travel around the country, we only use, when it's available, the union audiovisual technicians, IATSE, which is the theatrical stage unions. For my audiovisual business, We love calling the business managers and we get the labor from them. They're professional. They do a good job. And so I have a lot of respect for the trades unions, the actual trades unions, because they work hard and they know their craft. Let's see. Have I experience with Airbnb? So I do not have experience with Airbnb. I do have a friend of mine he rents his nice house at Airbnb, but I don't have any experience with it. For me, I mean, it seems like if you have a house or a couple houses, it might be a nice way to make some extra money for a house that's sitting there empty. I don't know how it would be as a full business because you have to manage it. But again, I don't have a lot of experience with it. IATSE. Okay, ISTSE. So good. Something is wrong with my fan. What's wrong with my fan? So if you notice, one blade spins faster than the other. That's what makes it spin around. So at first, when I first installed it, I thought it was something wrong with it. But then when I read the directions, they said that. So that's how it makes. If they both spin at the same velocity, I guess they'd be fighting each other. So one is actually stronger than the other one to make it spin around. So, so let's see. That's funny. Yeah. So. Yeah, IATSE is who we use for the audiovisual business, the IATSE union. Chicago, we're in Chicago a lot. San Francisco, we're in a lot. And New York City. So we use the theatrical unions for the audiovisual. Let's see, what else is there? I appreciate your hard work and hustle. Well, I appreciate that. You know, my best friend Dan, who owns a music store, and he's a musician too, he and I were talking today. So we're talking about on here where people call me, I'm a wealthy rich, blah, 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 blah. Well, Dan's my age, and we grew up together, and he says, yeah, well, Jeff, when you were out DJing every night, your friends were out drinking beer and having a good time, and I was DJing, I was working my ass off. So I earned it back then. I did my 80 hours a week back then, so I could work 40 hours now. So yeah, I did do a hustle that I take credit for that. I'm proud of it. I'm not bragging. It's the difference between being proud and bragging. You know, people accuse me of being a bragger. I don't think I'm a bragger, but I am proud of the fact that I did work my ass off till I was 40. I worked from 20 to 40 being a DJ 3-4 nights a week. I mean, it was unbelievable, besides going to school and working a full-time job. And now I work a little less than the 80 hours a week, which is kind of nice. Hi from Florida. Hello, Florida. Let's see. New York City IBEW. Okay. Electrical workers in New York City. So yeah, so obviously when we do some work in New York City, we end up using the IBEW for electrical. And it's nice because, hello from Kentucky. So I was in Kentucky a few months ago. I had to buy a tractor, believe it or not, for the property management company. You know, in Rhode Island, there's not a lot of farms. There's not a lot of tractor companies in Rhode Island. And I wanted to buy a tractor, with a backhoe so we could dig trenches to tie into sewers and run electrical lines, stuff like that. And so a friend of mine said, well, you know what you should do? Look down south, look in Kentucky, because lots of farmland, there's probably a lot of tractor dealers. And sure enough, I found a tractor in Kentucky. So I drove there with Rick, one of my guys. We drove to Kentucky. I bought a tractor and towed it back. 15-hour ride. And I'm glad I did it. What's the name of my ice cream shop? So my ice cream shops are named Dear Hearts. It was named that by the previous owner. When I bought them, I left it the same. Well, actually, I bought one. The original one was Dear Hearts. I bought Dear Hearts. It was already a Dear Hearts for 20 years in Patuxent Village. It was very popular, well known. So I kept the name. I didn't change the name. Don't love the name, but it was the name. And as I opened up more, I just used the same name for consistency. And it's worked out very well because locally people know who it is. You know, and like I said, at one point I did have 6. Now I'm down to 3. Possibly we'll have another one next year, but we're not sure yet. But yeah, so I have those ice cream shops. And let's see what else is there. So it's interesting because I'm getting messages right now from my so we use software to manage our properties, and I just got a message across my screen that somebody's lease expired. Because what happens is today's the last day of the month. So anybody whose lease expires tonight will get a bunch of messages that their lease expired. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to, be posting some more stuff tomorrow, and I think I will do another live. I am going to really find out about the fan, since so many people are interested in the fan. and I will just do a whole TikTok just on the fan. Let's see. Are you against paying for expensive real estate classes that come with mentoring? No, if you don't know the business, and it depends though. If you want to sell real estate, then yeah, go ahead, learn the best way to sell the real estate. If you want to become a real estate agent, there's those programs out there that travel around the country. Go to learn how to buy property, no money down, and all that stuff. I personally don't believe in those, and it's interesting because at the auction, you will see people come to the auction who took the class, and you see them get a little disappointed. A lot of people didn't go to the auction and buy a house for $25,000. It does not work that way. A house, a $200,000 house, it might start at $25,000, but the people at the auction are going to pay fair market. If you have 10 people at that auction, they're going to bid on it and pay fair market for that house. So you're not going to get the house for $25,000. So what happens is these people say you can buy it no money down, or you can buy it at the auction, buy auction houses. Well, fine. Now you buy the auction house, you have to pay cash for it, or have access to cash, whether you borrow the money or have an investor. You have to have access to cash, because when you buy a house at the auction, as soon as the bank is ready to close on it, you have to give them the money. Usually they give you 48 hours when they're ready to close. So that's the problem with that. So if you're going to take classes to be a real estate agent, yes, absolutely. Why not? You can learn the laws, learn how to file the paperwork, learn how to market the house. That makes sense to me. That makes a lot of sense to me. But these other classes where they go around and they have these programs and no money down, I don't see that being of any value. I really don't. Let's see. So the name of the software that we use now is called, that one we just changed. So that one is called Property. Let me see, so I don't tell you the wrong one, because we just changed. Tenant Cloud. It's called Tenant Cloud, and it's a pretty good program up to about 400 units. So we're good for if we ever get up to that. 'Cause I think we're starting to peak out, but over that, then you have to go to a little more expensive, a bigger program. But this works for us for managing the tenants, and then we use this along with QuickBooks. QuickBooks is what we use for our accounting, but Tenant Cloud is the program we use to manage our properties. It's a good program. I don't know the name of the fan. It's my only fan. But I will find out. I will definitely find out. Let's see what else is there. So this guy's saying the United States needs more distribution of wealth. Well, the thing is that, as we know, it's only 1% of the people that are really the ultra wealthy in the United States. Again, I lived at home with my parents till I was 30. I have 4 brothers. We lived, when I grew up, it was a little ranch house with 3 bedrooms. I mean, we grew up with nothing. My brothers we all went off and did 5 different distinct careers. And like I said, I started as a DJ. I DJ'd and just saved my money. I bought a sound system, rented out the sound system to bands. Then I started the audiovisual business, and the audiovisual business started making money. So I don't know what to tell this guy here. I mean, except that, we make choices in life, and I worked hard for where I am right now, and I still work every day. I work every day. I go to work every day, and my wife goes to work every day. And we work as a team, and that's the only thing I can suggest, that people work as a team, and just however you spend your money is a priority. There are a lot of haters on TikTok. I see that. I have thick skin. I see that people write all the stuff, but the way I don't know what their demons are. I don't know if they're sitting there smoking whatever. What's a pack of cigarettes? 2 packs of cigarettes a day, $25, $30 a day, $200 a week, $800 a month. Well, I know where I'd want to spend the $800 a month, but that's me. Those people spend the $800 a month on cigarettes. I would spend the $800 a month. Well, you know what? That's a small mortgage. That's a mortgage on a duplex. So, I mean, you know what? It's all priorities. But then to turn around and fault somebody like me for investing my money the way they did, that's not fair. I don't judge them. I don't expect them to judge me. What businesses that I owned in the past are the most profitable and least involved? That's a great question. So my audiovisual business up until the pandemic was the most profitable, and I was the least involved because it runs itself. The guys travel around the country, they set up the equipment, least involved, most profitable. When the pandemic hit, I was sitting here with a warehouse full of equipment that I couldn't use, a staff that would have to get laid off, but I was lucky. I didn't lay them off. I started another business. I started the waste business. The waste business, I was able to use all my salespeople from the audiovisual to sell dumpsters. The waste business is that. I bought the trucks, and I started Butler Waste, which is, the 30-yard dumpsters, the big construction dumpsters, the rear load cans that you use behind businesses, the front load cans that you use. I started that business. That business is the most time consuming, it's the most stressful, but it's in infancy. It's only 13 months old business. I started 13 months ago. It's very stressful. It doesn't make money yet. And it is the most time consuming because it's in its infancy. In 2 years, if it's still this time consuming, I'll, have a different opinion of it. But it is very stressful for a lot of reasons. Trucks break down, people calling sick, drivers calling sick. The guys hit things, break things. Trust me, I could do a whole series, which I will, just on that business alone. So the audiovisual business is the most profitable, the least one I have to babysit. The real estate, though, believe it or not, because of the amount of units now, it's profitable, but it's also time consuming because you have a lot of maintenance. We have a lot of staff, so I'm managing staff. But I would say the audiovisual business is probably the best one as far as not having to babysit it as much. But then, of course, the waste business is the toughest one to manage. It really is a tough one. So human beings also need free health care in college. Okay, all right. Sounds to me like you got some problems there. Why do they need free health care? You can't pay a little towards your health care, a little bit. I don't know, free, everything free, So do you contribute anything? Should you trade any service for any of that free healthcare? Why are we even going down this path? Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't even get that. So that guy's kind of out in left field somewhere. I don't need to check out Europe and Canada because I live in the United States. So thank you very much. So the renters ever get rental assistance? So all of my renters got rental assistance, except for these two, which supposedly they applied for. They have to provide my attorney tomorrow morning by 10 o'clock with proof that they applied for it and 2 good faith down payments, and then I will allow them to stay as long as they keep paying weekly. If they don't provide it, then they can move out tomorrow. I'm all done with them. I wasted enough time and energy and money on them. Though I will tell you, one of them did get 2 million views on TikTok, so he did make me TikTok famous. So I got to give him credit there, which is amazing. When I think about that, it's amazing. So I'll give him credit there, that one. But he can also get out tomorrow if he doesn't come up with the money and agree to make a payment. How do you market your waste management business? So that's a good question. So what happened was when I first started the business, I already had some built-in customers, my own properties. So that's how I started with my properties. I was paying about $4,000 a month for my own waste removal, just for my dumpsters, not counting the 30-yard construction dumpsters. So I started with my own businesses. So then what we did is we started doing some advertising on Facebook, which was very, very good, actually. The Facebook advertising really did well. So I did Facebook advertising. Then I did some local TV advertising. And then what happened was in February, another local business, waste business, had a lot of customers. They went out of business. And they went to foreclosure auction. So what I did is I went to the auction and I bought all their assets. Dumpsters, trucks, containers, 30-yard containers. And with that, I got their customer list. And we were able to get a lot of the customers from them, which really helped boost my business. So that really worked out well. That was in February and March. And so we got a lot of customers there. So that helped out. The business still needs some more customers to break even, but it's getting there. Every day we sign up a couple more customers. But yeah, the TV advertising, cable TV advertising worked, and Facebook really worked. Word of mouth also helped. And we have some salespeople that were out on the road, stopping in and soliciting businesses. Let's see. The mob does not bother us. No, it's funny because when I owned my nightclub, that was the big thing. Oh, is the mob bothering you? Do you have to pay off the mob and this and that? The name of my club was Club Hell, so they thought, okay, who we connected with? It wasn't anything like that at all. Nothing like that at all. And same with the waste business. the waste business now, as you know, there's publicly traded companies. There's Waste Management, they're a publicly traded huge company. There's Waste Connection, they're a huge publicly traded company. There's Republic, a huge publicly traded company. So no, nobody bothers us in that business that way. Is the business sleazy? Yeah. Cutthroat? Absolutely. Did I expect that? Not really. I'm a little surprised at how cutthroat that business is and how sleazy the other companies are trying to steal your business and this and that. It's free enterprise. The only thing I can do is try to run it, honestly and ethically the best we can, and hopefully that will work for us. One of the reasons I started the waste business is because of the sleaze bags in the waste business. We rent a lot of 30-yard construction dumpsters. So they'd come, they'd take it away. Next thing I know, I get a bill for overweight for 3 or 4 tons, another $500. I don't know if I was over tons. I have to trust these people to say I was over tons. Well, I then quickly learned that they do scale. They weigh the dumpster at the scale. So I started asking for the slips. So I got smart. And even with my customers, we give them the slips. But that is a sleaze move that a lot of people in the waste business do. Is they'll just tell you that you're overweight and they overcharge you and play games. And if you have to make money doing that, then get out of the business. That's disgusting, I don't mind sharing the information. I know you're saying lots of great information for free, and I appreciate that. I will find out where I got the fan, which I think is the funniest thing. So, but I don't mind sharing the information. I mean, it's fun. This has been fun for me. It's nice because years ago I used to a friend of mine, and we had like a radio talk show on the local radio station on Saturday afternoons. We were into computers at the time. We'd talk about computers and technology, cell phones, all that stuff. So this is kind of fun. It kind of reminds me of that, and I don't mind sharing the information. And at the same time, I'm learning things too. People from other areas of the country share information with me, different laws and different things. The other thing is, somebody talking about, slumlord, blah blah blah. So one of the things that I do with my properties, and of course you have to do it anyway if you have in Rhode Island, the laws are very strict, the fire laws, and that's because back years ago they had the Station Fire, which was one of the biggest devastating fires in the country. It was right here in West Warwick, where over 100 people died. After that, they really mandated a lot of laws, good laws. Fire alarm systems in buildings, commercial buildings, large gathering houses, nightclubs. Nightclubs really went through, and I owned a nightclub at the time. So I appreciated the upgrade in the fire alarm systems and the safety systems because I want to sleep at night. In the winter especially, I wake up in the morning, you hear about a fire here, a fire there. The last thing you want to hear is that you had a fire in one of your buildings, somebody got injured. So I appreciate having the fire alarm systems in all my buildings. For safety, obviously, to get people out, safety, but also less damage, less repairs. It keeps the cost down. You want to get the place fixed right away. So it's interesting because when people call me a slumlord, or people call other people slumlords, when I look at some of the safety measures that landlords take to fix up their properties, especially me, I take that. I'm a little sensitive to that because I know how I am. I'm a little anal when it comes to making sure the buildings are safe. I even put a fire alarm system in a building that didn't need it, but I wanted it to be safe. At one point. So let's see. We own a small topography business and wanted to get some property to rent out. This helps a lot. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Right now, today, it's very difficult to buy property because the market is so high. It's very difficult. People are charging on the potential. They're asking money on the potential. I see people overpaying for property that in a year I have a feeling they're going to be walking away from. It's very difficult right now to buy a multi-unit because people are charging way too much in this area anyway, in Rhode Island. I don't know how it is elsewhere in the country, but in this area, people are asking way too much. They're getting it. People are paying too much. So, I don't blame people for asking too much because it's what the market will allow. The problem that I have is that, just around here, if somebody sells a 6-unit building for $800,000, it's $125,000 per unit, $130,000 per unit. The problem is, how are you going to make that up and pay your mortgage, your tax, insurance? So you're just moving money. You're getting the money and you're paying it out. Why bother? And have the aggravation of dealing with all those tenants. So I see it very difficult right now. I think it's going to be still a few more months before anything happens. But anyway, I'm going to get going now because it's 11:20. I was on for a couple hours. I really appreciate the people that tune in. I hope you're following me and like me or whatever you do on TikTok. And I'm going to continue posting stuff. And you can always ask me questions on some of my posts. And other than that, I don't even know how to shut off the live because I never did a live before. I'm sure there's some sort of an X or whatever it is to get out of this, but I appreciate everything. So everyone have a good night and stay in touch. Thank you.